has a lot going on up here.
Yeah.
We're ready? All right. Good evening. We'll call to order the City of Indio joint meeting with IWA. Today's date is August 17, 2022. My name is Wayman Furman. I'm the mayor of the city. I'll be chairing this meeting. Could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Holmes.
Present.
Councilmember Miller.
Present.
Councilmember Ramos Amit.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Ortiz.
Present.
And Mayor Furman.
Present. The next item is invocation. Do we have someone online for an invocation? No? Okay. So I guess everyone to stand and join us in the pledge. And if Councilmember Miller will lead us, appreciate it.
Hand over your hearts. We can pay homage to the flag of our country for all those who have protected it in the past, in the present, and in the future. Please begin. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Thank you. All righty, the next item is item number 4, City Attorney report on closed session. City Attorney, do we have any reportable actions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are no reportable action for the items we discussed in closed session.
All righty, so the next item is item number 5, presentations, 5.1, presentation on new employees and promotions. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Perhaps if all of you want to come down and join me.
Since it's only 3 of us, why not?
Yeah.
Just it's an honor for me representing the whole staff team, Team Indio, as we affectionately call it, to welcome the newest members of the team formally here, recognizing you in front of the city council and getting to know them is a little bit better as well. So, and just know that we do have those watching at home also to get to know those that are serving so diligently to make Indio even better. So as I read your name, if you'll please come forward, we do have a city swag bag. If you'll just stay here, then we'll call everybody else up. First, we welcome our new Economic Development Manager, Miguel Ramirez Cornejo.
Here you go. Thank you. There you are.
Great, Miguel. As a planning technician 1, Nico Gutran. As a permit technician 1, Gloria Hariki. Is she here? Gloria is here. And as a code enforcement officer 1, Maha Saljuki. Maha is not here yet, but let's welcome Maha. Jorge Mendez from our IWA team. Also with IWA, Ulysses Zendejas. Also not present, police officer Chris Wiley. Trevin Lampkin is a code enforcement officer. We've had some promotions as well. So this is where members of Team Oakley, Team Indio. Oh man, that was tough. That was tough. I did that for Andres, who's one of ours. Andres Coronel is a management analyst at IPD. And essentially the face of our front desk, senior permit technician, Veronica Lopez. And then new building inspector, Eduardo Escobar, who we stole from IWA. So we want to do a photo op, and then I'm sure the mayor will want to say some words, but we do welcome all of you, those that have been promoted, as well as all of you that are new to the team.
Raise it this way. Come on.
The public service is a great opportunity, and let's take some photo ops, and then.
My rain's almost over, so. We're supposed to leave. I'm supposed to stay here.
1, 2, 3.
All right, and before you before you all leave, we'll give you guys a couple of words. I just want to say for our new employees, welcome to Team Indio. You came to the best city in the Coachella Valley, so we welcome you. You're at the perfect time. We're getting ready to start season. We have a lot going on. Our trajectory is going up, and so you joined us at the perfect time, and we really need you. And I want to thank you all in advance for making us look great, because we're only as good as our team, and you're our team. So welcome to our promotions. Congratulations. And just thank you for the work that you've been doing. We've been growing at such a fast pace. We know you all been doing such extremely amount of work, and we just appreciate it. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
You did, yeah. That's for one of your team.
So we got past your house.
Yeah. He's 5 minutes behind.
Oh.
So, but
Never too late.
no, it's perfectly fine. Pastor Tony, if you don't mind, we could skip around the agenda, and I could ask if we could go back to item number 2, which is our invocation. Pastor Tony drove out; he was working, and he just got caught up in the Indio traffic. And but if you all would join us to stand for invocation, if you do not like to join this, you could take this opportunity to step out. Thank you.
Thank you for this. If we could just bow our heads in reverence to the Lord. Lord Jesus, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for our great city. We thank you for the governance, Lord. We thank you that your wisdom prevails here. And Lord, we just ask continually to keep your hedge of protection around us, to continue to keep everybody grounded and rooted, continue to keep us a city of peace and a city of destiny and a city of hope. And Lord, as these persons that have been ordained to be the leaders here, Lord, just endow them, Lord, with everything that they need, from the resources to the support, Lord, to the wise counsel that they get and receive, Lord, and continually to move us forward. We understand that we steward everything. We own nothing, Lord, that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and those that dwell therein. So thank you for this opportunity. I ask you just continue to protect, guide, and govern in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
And since I'm here, I did have a dual. I'm going to switch to the Boys and Girls Club now, if I may. I'm director of operations there as well.
You may. We can have a seat. And
I'm going to be really quick. I'm not going to preach, Brian.
Okay.
But you come to church, I'm going to preach all day. But I was commissioned by my boss to bring you this little plaque. It says, to the City of Indio City Council members, thank you for being a top donor for 2021 and 2022. Just on behalf of the Boys and Girls Club, you guys have given to us for years, since I was a kid, in the 60s and 70s even. And just wanted to give you a small token of appreciation to tell you as much appreciated, as much needed, and we're working our hardest to be good stewards of what you do for us. Couldn't do it without you. We love the partnership. So thank you. Can you come down and get it, Mayor, while you're here?
Absolutely.
Your reign's almost over.
Yeah, your reign's almost over. Hey, Glenn, can you come down too? Because Glenn's been a board member since I was quite a bit younger. Elaine, you too. I'm being nice. You got more hair. You have more hair than me, so I'm not gonna do much, right? Brian,
2 or 3.
Scott, Brian, can you come up? Okay, we'll let you do it. Brian, you don't want to come? That's that next one, right?
Beauty between thorns.
Yes, sir. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. See you, man.
All right. Thank you for maneuvering with us. So we'll move on to the next item, which is item 5.2, presentation by Cindy Bergerson, Chief Executive Officer of the Children's Discovery Museum of the Desert.
I get my swag
Yes,
bag now?
yes.
Do I get my swag bag now or after?
We can make that. We can make it happen. Yeah, make it happen.
Okay, thank you. Well, Mayor Furman, City Council, city staff, and everybody here. I'm Cindy Bergerson, the proud CEO of the Children's Discovery Museum of the Desert. And I'm here to share with you today what has been going on really since COVID, but also a little history about the museum as well for those of you that may not know. I just click this here. Okay, perfect. So we have been around for 3 decades, the Children's Discovery Museum. We started in a dentist's office and we've been in our current location for 25 years next year. We're really excited about that. And we have always prided ourselves on being an extension of school programming and learning through hands-on exploration and our community outreach as well. And what makes us unique is, first of all, being multi-generational. We now have people that came to the museum as kids, brought their kids, and are bringing their grandkids. So for me, that's always fun to hear everybody's memories all along the way. We see about 85,000 visitors a year, 30,000 or so of which are local, and the rest are tourists. So we are an economic driver for the Valley as well, filling all of our resorts and attractions and restaurants. Our location, we are central to the Valley, but we also are the only children's museum in about a 90-mile radius. So that makes us very unique as well. The hands-on learning aspect, of course, is unique to us. We have 3 buildings, which you'll see in a moment when I talk about our reimagination that we have launched, is very unique as well because it provides some opportunities for different types of programming. And one of the things that we are very excited about is that we are going to be Autism Certified. We're one of the first venues in the Valley to be so. And what that means is we're getting credentialed. All of our staff will have training with autism awareness at different degrees based on their roles. We will also have sensory guides for all of our exhibits so that families with sensory sensitivities can pre-plan their visits to the way that it will be the most advantageous for their time at the museum. And we also are going to be building a low sensory space for any children that have an actual meltdown in our space. They can go in there privately and unembarrassed, and they can recoup and focus and hopefully enjoy the rest of their time with us. So during COVID, obviously we had to close down because we are a hands-on museum and that doesn't bode well during a pandemic. So what we did is a deep dive to see where we were and where we wanted to be. And what we discovered is we knew that our exhibits were 25 years old. And so we reached back out to our original exhibitry company. This was their first museum that they had ever designed and fabricated. So they were really excited when we came up with the idea of reimagining and taking this opportunity of having to be closed and staying closed in order to bring a product to our community that we could be really proud of. So this is the map of what our museum looks like. You can see the 3 different buildings. We are currently working on the Children's Museum, which is our main gallery, about 8,500 square feet. And then the other buildings will be subsequent phases thereafter. We have divided that gallery into 6 different sections, all under the lens of creativity. And I'll run through each one quickly to tell you about the different aspects of each. This is a density study showing all 40 of the exhibits. It's going to be really exciting and very innovative, and it's going to be something our community can really be proud of. The first section is right when you walk in the door. And if you have been to the museum, you may remember it's very beautiful architecturally speaking, but it's not very childlike. It doesn't scream children's museum right when you walk in, but that's going to change. As you can see, it's going to be very colorful, very joyful. And right when you walk in, it's going to be like a whimsical garden party. There are going to be bugs on the wall, birds on the wall, a beautiful topiary bunny, and there will be a theater for kids to put plays on for their caregivers, as well as a garden taco stand so they can make cricket tacos for their families and things like that. And this is a rendering of exactly what that's going to look like. You can see it's totally different, very happy and very, really spark interest right when you walk in. The next section is called Express, and we're actually building the stained glass house that you see here, and it'll be pulled apart, and all of the experiences will be on the interior and exterior of that house. The panels that you see are dichromatic film. We have a ton of windows in the museum, and so what that's going to do is utilize that natural light to create a prismatic kaleidoscope effect in the museum. And in this section, children will be allowed to express themselves with their verbal words, with the written word, and then also artistically. We're going to have experiences like painting with light, a prism wall, and a magnetic poetry wall. And this gives you another vantage point of that. The next section is called Experiment, and this is going to be a lot of loose parts, things like kiva planks and geometric panels and blocks. But the difference here is that instead of having maybe a set of 100 that you would have at home, we're going to have thousands. So kids can really just go bananas, think outside of the box and build things that they ordinarily wouldn't have the opportunity to build. This is going to be very scientific in nature. We will also have an animation station here where kids can make their own films. We'll have a 14-foot scarf blower where kids can put silk scarves into pipes with forced air and manipulate the forced air pathways to experience cause and effect. And then to the contrary, on the backside, it will be a ball fall wall where they can manipulate different pipes and ramps and have a ball go down the wall and see the same type of thing. This gives you an idea. It's sort of a T-shaped island, if you will, with all of these different experiences. So they just are moving around, exploring all of these different things, something new around every corner. The next section is Move, and the wall that goes along the building in the middle naturally facilitates movement. So we're taking advantage of that and having kids move and play and exercise without even knowing it. So we're going to have a rock climbing wall, which is that very colorful wall that you see in the middle. We have a pool noodle forest, which is to the right there, where kids can run through and just go crazy. And then we have on the left there, it's a net climbing structure, also 14 feet tall. Everything in the museum is going to be ADA compliant. So if a child in a wheelchair can pull themselves through, if they have the upper body strength, they can go through this experience as well. And this is an aerial view of what that's going to look like. The next space is in the back of the museum where you may remember the pizza place and the grocery store. This is going to be our toddler town called Explore. And it pays homage to mid-century modernism because that is so full of shapes and great colors. It's going to have in the corner a space for crawlers with soft mats and a busy wall and such. And then all kinds of different things for the real littles. And then we're also going to have a caregiver resource library because in our research, that's one of the things we found we're missing in the Valley, is a place where caregivers can go and read books about family dynamics, breastfeeding, discipline, all of those types of things that are not readily available, and also be a hub to be an informational resource for everything going on in the Valley for kids, since people think there's nothing to do with kids. And this is what it's going to look like. It's going to be really amazing. And then the last section that we're doing is upstairs. And when you go upstairs, it's like you're going up to the mountains, but this is a very special space. This is going to be our calm space. This space here is called Dream, and it's just that. It's going to be tranquil lighting, tranquil soundscapes of nature. And this whole section is for any child with sensory sensitivities that may be on the spectrum or anybody that just needs a calm from the activity of the museum. So we have a little camping space there. We have a waterfall wall with a fishing activity. And then in the back, you can see there's a library with some cocoon style seating to envelop the kids, weighted blankets, sensory toys, and things like that. And on the walls of this section, it's all pencil illustrations of different animals that you might find in the mountains. There will be twinkling fireflies, and then all of the messaging is about dreaming. What do you dream of being when you grow up? And you can see the mama bunny. I'm dreaming of having a big family, and she's got her 10 bunnies there. The raccoon, I want to be a chef. And then the main message, as you can see on the right, is that dreams do come true. So why are we doing this? Well, obviously we love kids. We always have. But right now, especially, kids are the victims of the pandemic more than anybody. They didn't have field trips, family parties, family vacations. They were socially isolated. And then with everything going on in the world as well, and the dangers and things that they're exposed to, we just want to be a safe place for kids to come, to feel like there's nothing else going on outside of our four walls, and that they can interact with their families. We're really big on that because a lot of people don't do that at home. And so we want to provide those resources. So I am going around to all of the cities to ask for help. We've been really very grateful and very lucky that we have gotten support so far from the city of Palm Desert and the city of Rancho Mirage. And so how the city of Indio can help, because we do serve your families. You and 3 other cities are tied for second place of how many families we serve here in the Valley. And so we would love to come to you for financial support and be on your agenda and a consideration in your budget. We also would love for you to champion for the museum. That's my main goal, is to educate our community so that now when somebody asks you, you know what's going on. You feel informed, and you now know how to get a hold of me if you have other questions. And then representation on our board. We do have ex officio members from a couple of the other cities, and we would love to have representation from Indio. So if you'll consider that as well, that would be fantastic. And that's my presentation. If you have any questions for me, I'm right here.
Well, thank you for your presentation. And
Thank you.
I'm sure the community is excited about this, excited that you're opening back up, and especially with all the new features and amenities you have for the children and all children, so that's great. Some of the things you talked about. Today is actually the perfect day. We were talking about our grants and sponsorships. So I'm pretty sure that we'll be reaching out to you, or we'll make that connection. And if any other council members have any comments here.
Yeah, if I could, thank you. I've been to the museum many times. Beautiful facility. It's exciting for the new opportunities they're going to bring to the children and actually your volunteers. Congratulations to all of them. I know how hard they work, and all the nonprofits out in this desert couldn't work without the help of our volunteers.
Absolutely.
So please give them our sincere thank you.
Thank you.
How many, when you say kids and families, what are we talking about? How many kids on a normal day? Or when you're open, come in, and when you say families and Indios too, are we talking 50 families, 100 families? What would you estimate?
So we see 85,000 visitors a year, about 35,000 local, and you and the other 3 cities that make up second place are about 12% of those visitors per year. So Palm Desert is the number 1 at 36%, and then you, Rancho Mirage, Cathedral City, and La Quinta are the next right there.
So 4,200.
About 4,200 a year. And with our expanded programming, we're hoping to bring more older kids in as well.
And how do the people come to you? I mean, is it families coming? Is it the schools that sign up? I'm just trying to, where is your main source of youth coming to you? Program?
That's a great question. Out here locally, you're talking about?
Yes.
I would say local families that are just coming to do memberships. We do have family memberships. A lot of kids come to us through the school system, and that's something that we're particularly in East Valley, we know that transportation and sometimes budget can be an issue. So being able to come on a field trip is a really great thing.
Okay.
Eventually, we do want to work on getting grants for complimentary reduced memberships and or admissions for families that need that as well. But they come to us in mostly those ways, field trips with schools, and then just coming as an attraction.
Thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you.
Outstanding. I love your museum. It transforms me into a kid every time. It's fascinating. Do you have programs that allow for buses connecting with Rotary or some of the other service clubs so that some of the kids, particularly even further east of us, have the opportunity to get there?
Absolutely. We, when we reopen, we are still closed right now, but when we reopen, we are going to be considering all of those things. We have done that in the past. We've partnered with different service organizations and schools and cities to make that happen. My dream one of these days, this is top secret, anybody who's watching, keep it on the low, is to have a satellite location in East Valley one day. That's my personal goal. I am partnering with Pueblo Unido a lot. And that's one of the things that I've talked to them about, is making that happen so that we have another location out on this end of the valley as well.
Great.
So write that down.
Mayor Pro Tem or Councilmember Amit? I can't see her.
Yeah,
I have no questions. Thank you.
okay. Yeah, I just want to say congratulations on the expansion. We're really excited to see all the new things you have going on there. And also congratulations on getting your staff Autism Certified. I haven't really heard of many organizations doing that, but I know that's a big need in our community. So that's going to be great to have somewhere where these families can go and enjoy with their kids without having to worry so much about all the obstacles that they go through. So really appreciate that, and really appreciate the efforts in bringing something to the East Valley as well. Let us know whatever you need, helping spread the word. We're definitely there for that too. So definitely, tag us, reach out to us, and we'll help you spread the word when you reopen.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty. So our next item is item 5.1. However, we are going to continue that item to our next meeting, which is September 21st, 2022. So we'll move on to item number 6, which is report on city council, external and internal boards. Councilmember Miller, would you like to start us off?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I had a couple of my committees were active. One was Sunline Transit Agency. Not a lot with the summer months. We're dark this month, but we did buy 5 new Chevy Volts. We're starting to change our fleet away from natural gas and diesel to electric and hydrogen cell fuel vehicles, so that we're zero emission fuel, hopefully with not only the buses, but everything that we use for transportation. And these are what they call transport cars. And what happens when the big bus lines that going through like Coachella all the way to Palm Springs, when they need to change drivers, these drivers drive out there in this car, switch drivers, and they drive back. So it's an opportunity for us to save even more energy. And then also we're building the first hydrogen cell service station in the Coachella Valley, and this side of Riverside and San Bernardino County. Will be at the local agency there on on Varner Road, right off of the freeway there in I-10 at Thousand Palms, where the Sunline Transit Agency hub is. It'll be a station that people can fill up with hydrogen cell as we go forward. A lot of cars that you're going to see are going to go away from electric and go to hydrogen cell because it's even more efficient than electric is, with less issues and zero emissions. When it has emission comes out, it's like a little bit of water coming out when you see condensation when you have different kinds of vehicles. So that is a great investment by the state of California into the Coachella Valley and Sunline Transit Agency, which continues to look for drivers and other opportunities. So anybody out there looking for jobs, Sunline Transit Agency is looking for all kinds of employees. And then secondly, we did ECAC. We had a special meeting yesterday to talk about the last 4 months to recommend to the board for IID on the cost of electricity for the Coachella Valley in our area that's done by IID. And what we did is we reset the rates. And usually what happens is what we recommend to them is it's a set rate. It's 3.2 cents of what it is for the whole 12 months. We changed it so that it was a little more expensive at the start. And then we'd figure out at the end of the year, because we weren't sure how they were going to get some of the electricity, what we would do to make up the money in the last 4 months. One of the recommendations was to go up almost to 5 cents, which would have started in September, or spend $6 million out of a special fund to be able to lower the rates down for all the residents and the individuals that use electricity. Our recommendation from the board, not mine, I agreed to do the $6 million, was to charge everybody more money. The board, in their wisdom for IID, reversed that and gave the $6 million so that the rates will be about 3 cents a kilowatt instead of 5, which is going to save everybody not a lot of money, about $10 or $15 per month, but it all helps. So my hat's off to the IID board for utilizing that money to keep the rates low for not only our businesses, but also our residents in this area. And then lastly, I want to say thank you to the fellow Garden Fellowship Church, who hosted the Mayor's Cup, the teams and the coaches and city officials at their church off of Jefferson Street for the Saturday breakfast to get them all together to get the rivalry going. This Friday night is the game at Indio High School between the two teams for the Mayor's Cup. The mayor will be there to flip the coin and then have the best team win. And hopefully with me, because I'm an honorary knight, but all my kids are Rajas. I hope it's a 30-30 tie. We'll just call it even. But I have the feeling, looking at the Shadow Hills team and how well they're ranked, that Indio might have a hard time beating them. But go Rajas, go Knights. And yes. And that's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your report. Councilmember Holmes.
Always fun on Friday night. Be out there. We've got to cheer up both teams. Absolutely. You know, this is the time of the year when many of my meetings are dark, and I look forward to September because they all start coming back to life. But I did do something really fun today. Our safety person, Dennis Day, is trying to get the word out and trying to teach little kids about safety. And so he was at the library today, and he had a group of little kids, and I joined him on the floor reading books to these really little kids and teaching them about safety, about how to walk across the street, how to wait for the green light, how to pet a dog, how to, you know, if there's an earthquake or there's a problem, you know, what you need to do. It was great. He was terrific. It's always fun. Kids are always so interested and eager to learn. And we had a blast this morning. And that is essentially the majority of what I've had to do this month.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Amit.
Thank you, Mayor. All of my committees have been dark over the summer. I have no report this evening.
All right, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for joining us today. These past few weeks, I've been organizing a seminar I'll be hosting with Water Education for Latino Leaders and Assemblymember Eduardo Garcia. And we're going to be discussing the water system in the Coachella Valley, as well as some of the environmental concerns related to water in the valley. We'll also have representatives from CVWD, Salt and Sea Management Plan, and the State Water Board. And that's going to be on September 6th at 9:45 at COD's Palm Desert campus. And we have some other potential speakers we'll announce soon, so please stay tuned for more information. This Saturday, I got the chance to attend the Mayor's Cup breakfast with some of our council members and the Indio High and Shadow Hills High football teams and coaches at the Garden Fellowship Church. And it was great seeing everyone enjoying some community time together before the big game. And I was happy to see some of my former students and former teammates there as well. A big thank you to Garden Fellowship and their team for their work on Saturday and for providing the space and food for everyone to come together. And good luck to both teams. You can come support them at Indio High School this Friday at 7 p.m. for the Mayor's Cup football game. See, these past few weeks, I've had a few residents reach out with concerns over evictions. We're still seeing many evictions here because of the rising cost of housing, as well as inflation affecting our residents. In my experience, many people are not aware of some of the laws that are there to protect them in the eviction process, and many are also not aware of the resources that we provide in terms of legal assistance through the Inland Fair Housing and Mediation Board and Inland County's Legal Services. So I wanted to see if we could bring back a discussion item to address this and see if there's a way we can make sure our residents are getting access to these resources. Maybe we can require that information and resources be given to residents as part of the eviction process or in the process of raising rents, or maybe we can send an information piece to renters in the city and pay for it with our housing fund. But I'm also open to any other ideas from our council. Earlier today, we also discussed water conservation. We discussed how we have room for improvement, right? We were doing a lot and we are improving our water conservation, but there is still more room for improvement. And so I wanted to see if we can consider two policies. First, to consider a requirement that all new city developments contain only native planting when looking at non-functional turf. And the second is that we require native planting for all new developments within the city for non-functional turf. And so this will help us conserve water, but also help our biodiversity and help the species in our wildlife here in the desert. So I wanted to see those three measures. First, the housing one, providing the information for our residents, and the two, requiring the native planting for city developments, and then requiring native planting for all developments. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And actually, before I even start with my report, I'd like to piggyback off one of his comments, City Manager. Maybe we could really look at Assembly Bill 1482 and see if there's some loopholes in there as far as evictions. And also just reiterate the point that we do contact with Inland Legal, and that is a service that's free of charge to our residents. So I just want to just convince our folks, if you have any challenges or questions, that is a resource. And it's also on our city website if you want that information. So I just want to give you that before I start. I had one meeting. I had a special meeting with the Cvac Public Safety Committee. We held a special meeting around active shooters, and Chief Washburn joined us with Chief Crum with a presentation. We also had the directors of security from Desert Sands Unified School District, Coachella and Palm Springs Unified School District join us. We also had Riverside County Behavioral Health and a representative from the supervisor's office as well. Very good discussion, and the collaboration is needed to prevent these incidents from happening in our communities, and also response. You know, we've seen these incidents be more prevalent in our communities, and we want to ensure our folks that we are doing everything possible, working together and exhausting all resources to keep all of our soft targets safe in that realm. So there's a lot of work that's going on. And also this is a conversation, you know, in law enforcement and also behavioral health that's ongoing. This year-round conversation. I know we've been talking about it lately, but it's an ongoing conversation. There's also a lot of training going on. And recently here in the city of Indio, our staff went through training with our Indio Police Department. So if you have any questions or you want to have training at your places of business, I'm pretty sure our police department can arrange for that. And so that's just a conversation we need to have and make sure we're keeping our folks safe out there. Also, welcome back to our Desert Sands Unified School District students. We had the first day of school yesterday, so that's always great. And I also attended the Mayor's Cup breakfast with Councilmember Miller and our Mayor Pro Tem. It was great. Thank you to Garden Fellowship Church for hosting that for us. And also the last couple of days, I went out and spent some time with the Indio High School Rogers football team and also the Shadow Hill Knights to see if they're ready to go. Looks like our teams are ready to go. And furthermore, it's just a school rivalry that's going on right now. They have cross country going on as well. So that's something else to look forward to. So it's just going to be a great year. The Mayor's Cup is a great week. The Mayor's Cup is part of it. We'll all be there. I have a jersey from Indio and I have a jersey from Shadow. So I don't know which one I'm going to put on afterwards, but we'll see who that winner is. So just, good luck to both teams. And also, our next council meeting will be September 21st. I will not be here. Our Mayor Pro Tem will be chairing that meeting. I will be traveling to Washington, D.C. with Riverside County Transportation Commission to meet with the U.S. Department of Transportation about our CV rail project. So we're advocating all the way to Washington, D.C. We have a meeting with them, and also Congressman Ruiz has arranged some meetings and things for us as well. So it's going to be a great trip, but we're working diligently to get that CV rail to the city of Indio. And also, I just have a request for staff and city manager. There's a lot of concerns and studies going on referring to cell phone towers. And I'd like the city manager to look at some of our cities who have set setbacks away from our schools as it pertains to cell phone towers. I know Palo Alto, California, is one of our cities that has done that, just to, also encourage broadband. We want to encourage broadband as well. But I think moving forward, I think it'd be an idea to, set some setbacks away from our schools as it pertains to cell phone towers. If you could look into that, city manager. And before I conclude my report, I just want to recognize one of our folks from the city of Indio, who is a longtime resident, was also a police officer, reserve police officer for the city of Indio, Mr. Ron Houston, who just passed away last week. And we want to send prayers and condolences to his family and also to our police department. I know that's a brother, so condolences to his family and our community. He was a well-respected person in the city of Indio for a very long time.
Maybe adjourn the meeting.
Yeah. Yes, we will. So that will conclude my report.
Oscar.
Yeah. Was that?
Yeah, I had the 3 items that I wanted to see if I could get consensus on, which was the bringing back a discussion on how we help provide information on the eviction process for our renters, and then also the 2 native planting policies that I would like to see brought back.
Yeah, I think the city manager got that, and we'll.
Unless there's opposition to at least discussing it.
Yeah.
No, I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem discussing it, but on the turf thing, I think we're doing a good job. So I'd like to keep with that theme to make sure that the developments are, moving forward, not trying to change it up as much. I think they're doing a pretty good job, but more than happy to have that discussion on evictions and all that. Yeah, of course. We pay for that service. Let's see what they're doing.
We got to get the word out as best as we can.
And also with the native plants, I think, we just had a study session on water conservation. That's something we have to be very cognizant of. Mr. Trejo is going to be providing us with some more outreach and some more material that we could get out to our residents. So some things that we could do every day to save water. But I will end that on a high note. We've been doing a great job in the city of Indio. Our developers have worked with us to, develop with desert landscaping. We're also looking at infrastructure in our city moving forward, how we can also mitigate water use in our city. So we're in this boat together. So No pun intended, but we're all going to work on this together. So we all agree with the city manager.
Will do.
Alrighty. So we'll move on to item number 7, city manager reports and information.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to mention that we had another great second Saturday concert event this past weekend. So you can plan on the second Saturday of September, which is the 10th in the evening here at Miles and Smur to have yet another second Saturday concert. So we want to make sure everyone's aware and to come down and participate. That's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
And who's going to be performing on September 10th?
An excellent band.
But I think city manager, I think we need to get it out, but we also need to let them know it's just not a concert. There's food, there's everything else. It's a full-fledged community event. And I think people need to understand it's just not coming out with a concert and a chair. There's food, there's activities.
And dancing.
There's
Lots
all
of
kinds
dancing.
of stuff.
We have some new stores.
Come out and join your
downtown,
rest of your residents.
Some new businesses downtown that has opened their doors as well, correct? Yeah. So
Get in there.
Oh.
Get in there.
Well, we'll move on to item number 8, which is consent calendar. If no one would like to pull anything, I'll accept
I'll pull 8.11.
8.11.
Excuse me, city attorney, 8.11, since it's been pulled, do I need to recuse myself?
If the mayor would, yes, you will need to do that. And perhaps we take the rest of the consent calendar first, and
Okay.
then you can leave the room.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent calendar excluding 8.11.
I'll second that.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion for a consent calendar excluding 8.11 and a second. Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Holmes,
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramos Amit,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ortiz.
Aye.
Mayor, oh, thank you.
Oh,
And
sorry.
Mayor Furman.
Aye. The motion passes. Okay, now we'll
Okay.
give you some time to some
And
fresh
the city
air
clerk-
and cozy outside.
And the city clerk will note for the record that part of this item pertains to the downtown, and Councilmember Holmes owns property within the downtown area, and therefore she must recuse herself.
All righty. So who will be handling this item, city manager?
We'd be happy to answer any questions to address the item. Both Mr. Morgan and Mr.
Okay.
Ramirez are here to also answer any questions. So
Councilmember Amit, you have questions?
Yes, I do. I understood this program when it was initially proposed to the council to be a facade beautification or improvement program. But now I'm seeing that we're allowing 10,000 out of the 50,000 to be allocated for what are they? Interior improvements, I guess. And I'm not sure that we ever had that conversation. I don't recall it. But I would hope that if we do move forward with interior improvements, which it seems to me that allowing 10,000 out of 50,000 is a large amount. I'm kind of confused, I guess, because it says eligible improvements, they're all mixed up, the interior and the exterior. But the one that kind of stands out to me is display cases. It doesn't make sense to allow a business to expend money on something that can be removed. If it's going to be an improvement to the building, that's a different story. But to allow display cases, I think it's going beyond what the intent of this program was. You know, I agree with painting windows, the door, possibly entry floor covering, lighting systems, interior ceiling tiles, but display cases just doesn't seem to fit in the intent of the facade improvement program, because it's kind of going in a different direction with that. And then I also had a question about number 7. It seems to me that one's out of order, that it should be after number 3. And then I need clarification on number 4, because I don't understand if the business owner selects the contractor, then why does the city staff select and execute all the necessary contractor agreements? That didn't make sense to me. So are we essentially going to be hiring somebody to manage this program, these contracts, these compliance, these payments? I mean, that's what I need explanation on.
Okay, I'll go to the first question first. What we've learned over the last couple of years now, working with small business owners, and most recently entering into the lease agreements with the various tenants and restaurants that are coming in, is that we do need to do some form of interior improvements. Based upon that experience, we're seeing that the $10,000 is a fairly good number with respect to being able to help in that regard, because a lot of these buildings are old. They're not set up for the kinds of retail and or restaurant uses that we're looking at in downtown. So staff is proposing that $10,000 of the 50 be used for that. With respect to display cases, a lot of these smaller business owners coming in, as you well know, tend to underestimate what they need for the business. And we want to make sure that how the merchandise is displayed inside the store is done in a very professional manner, in a very clean and well-organized manner. And so we put that in there because we were intending that we wouldn't have businesses that would have merchandise sitting on, fold up tables or that kind of thing, and that it would be really professionally done. I understand your sensitivity with respect to those display cases being able to be taken with, out of the building downstream. But we're looking at this as if the business stays open for 5 years, 20% of that would be forgiven over time. And it's a pretty minimal investment over that 5-year period from staff's perspective. Miguel is here in the audience, our new economic development manager. He's been working very diligently on this program. We also have a PowerPoint up because we kind of anticipated that this might happen, that it might get pulled. And so I think if he goes over the things that he has in his PowerPoint, I'll invite him up and it'll answer some of the other questions that you have.
I don't need a PowerPoint. I just feel that $10,000 is a considerable amount of time. I'd like to take display cases and make it only fixed display cases. Things that will remain with the building.
Basically nothing. You want everything that's be put in to stay there if they leave or not.
Right.
It's on
Owned by the city. We've done that in the past. We've just done it.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too.
And then the other question is number 7 feels to me that it's out of order. And I don't understand number 4, unless we're going to hire somebody.
Yeah, the issue there was to provide the option to the businesses, knowing that some of these small businesses may have difficulty, not just managing their businesses and their household, and everything else, but to go get a contractor and to monitor the process. Staff could facilitate that and assist. So we can clean up the language between 4 and 7 as you identified it. But essentially the option is what's being proposed. We believe most of them will want to do it themselves. However, there'll be some that will need some assistance and some hand-holding. And so we wanted to offer that to them where we would, in that case, we would execute all of the documents and monitor the construction.
But that's not what it says. It says we will. I don't want that to read it that way, because I really don't want to be involved in a private business's management of their business. And if they need technical assistance, well, of course we offer technical assistance, but we're not going to select and execute contractor agreements and make sure that the contractors are in compliance. I mean, that's a private business owner's responsibility. If they're going to accept the grant or this forgivable grant, then they're going to agree to make sure to follow our rules. We're not going to do the work for them.
That's certainly up to the council, your discretion. I think giving the option provides some flexibility for those that may need a little more assistance. But you're right, the language needs to be cleaned up in the.
It doesn't say option, it says we will.
Yeah.
That's the part I don't like.
The intent of number 7 on that was to provide, if they did select their contractor and they were the ones that hired it, certainly that would be a different scenario. I am reminded that even in our minor home program, we select the contractor and manage and monitor the work. It just, there's some folks that are more capable than others, to be quite honest, to effectuate the work. So you can see with regard to the minor home program, it just makes more sense for us.
But what's the maximum on the minor home program? The dollar amount?
There's a range. I'm not sure we're 100% up to $50,000. Is that? Okay, up to $25,000.
So
And we're managing those?
Yes.
So when they do this, and I agree with Lupe on the selection of the contractor after you complete the work doesn't make a lot of sense because it's 7 unless they're just items and not in order. But I agree with Lupe to an extent, but how much of that comes out of the grant? Since we're managing it and we're not managing it for everyone, are we charging them a fee to do this? Or is that because then they're getting $25,000 plus another $2,000 or $3,000 worth of our stuff? So it's really not a $10,000 grant. It's a $13,000 grant.
Some in-kind assistance.
It's like one of the things that we've done with some of our other issues. And I'm not against it. I'm just saying that we got to make sure that's noted because we are doing more. It's one of the programs why we always worry about adding stuff to your guys' plate is because all these programs you're like, well, yeah, who's going to manage it though? And so if you guys got the manpower, but it should be noted that we did that because it really isn't a $10,000 grant. It really is what it costs us because we're providing the service to somebody else that we're not providing that. If that's the case, now I could get the city to do it. And I'm doing a $300,000 job and you're going to watch it for me. Or let's just use that as an example. Then I would say, you handle it. I'll sit back and watch. You handle all the pain. So I think that,
I think to the city manager's point, I mean, the intent of this was to set up a program where probably 90 or 95% of the people are going to actually want to do it themselves.
Good.
Okay. But there may be that 5 or 10%, right, that will not really have the time or energy, but it's a prominent building in our community that we want to see rehab. That's an entry point to our city, either off of Highway 111 or off of Indio Boulevard coming into downtown. So we did really just want to provide the flexibility. We're fine to take council's direction if you want to just take that out and make it so that they have to do the work. And if they don't have the time or energy or want to do it, we don't offer any technical assistance and we can just pass on that particular building. With respect to the interior, if you want fixed fixtures, we can certainly make that change.
Will this PowerPoint do us any justice?
No, I don't think it's going to answer these questions. It's really more of talking about how we're going to go forward from here.
I'm not against helping them. I just think it needs to be noted, and and it should be up to a certain limit. If you're going to give somebody $100,000 grant, and unless it's a prominent building, I mean that's where staff has to come in, and it's a prominent building, but they can't run it, but they're going to get $100,000 grant. I mean, some people don't have that expertise. I agree. But I think it's something the staff will have to look at. But I'm good with it. I just want it to be noted that if we're going to do extra, that they are actually getting more than what it is. It's just not a $10,000 grant. It might end up being a $14,000 grant when it's all done. Just so we know where we stand, what we actually put into it.
And keep in mind, the program says up to $50,000, up to $10,000 interior. Some of these may not hit that, but some of the more costly ones that we've seen and looked at lately with some of the buildings that we've leased up, they're in this range. So we targeted those numbers with an educated, experiential kind of viewpoint. We did not just pull them out of the air. We're basing them based upon what our on the ground experience has been in the last year or two.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good with it. I think it was
clarification.
Tended to help those folks who don't have the capability of doing that. We want to get some tenants in there and either our buildings, and we want to make sure they're
absolutely
well good. So
I'm good.
So is the language going to be corrected on number 4?
Yes, we will make that more clear pursuant to your direction.
And permanent fixtures. I agree with that. I think they need to be permanent so they can't roll them in and roll them out. Anything they put in there that we pay for needs to stay.
So if they leave in 2 years, then
it's ours. Yep. What we decide to do with it, we decide to do with it.
Great.
And by the way, if they leave in 2, then they have to pay back the amount of money that they received, right, that they
Yeah.
borrowed, right? Because you're only forgiving 20% of it per year.
Great.
And so
Good point.
I'll make that, if nobody else says, I'll make that motion to accept consent item 8.11 with the amendment for the display cases and permanent inside and the clarification on item 4.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Councilmember Miller, a second by Mayor Pro Tem. Could I vote, please?
Councilmember Holmes? Oh, sorry about that.
Nope.
Councilmember Miller?
Aye.
Councilmember Ramos Amit?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ortiz?
Aye.
And Mayor Furman.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Councilmember Holmes back in.
Okay, working on my tan out there. Thank you.
So our next item is item number 9, administrative items. First one is item 9.1, First Amendment to the City Manager Employment Agreement and adoption of resolution number 10317, amending the city manager salary schedule and the classification and compensation plan. City Attorney.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm pleased tonight to have before you the First Amendment to the City Manager's Employment Agreement. And as you know, City Manager Mr. Montgomery has recently completed his first year. And as required by his employment agreement, a performance evaluation is conducted on an annual basis. And we had that evaluation earlier this summer in June. The city manager and his staff, the team that he leads, as all of you know, have made significant accomplishments over the last 12 months. Taken center stage has really been the impetus for all the things that you've seen on the weekends, the farmers market, new businesses, other investment in the downtown. The quality residential growth in the city continues, along with additional commercial projects, and all of this adds to the city's revenue base. Based on the City Council's evaluation, the First Amendment to his employment agreement provides for a $10,000 increase to his current base salary of $250,000. So the new base salary will be $267,000. As required by state law, we were required to provide an oral summary anytime there is final action on the city manager's salary schedule, or compensation. And therefore, I'm providing that detail not only in this report, but orally for the public. The resolution before you not only approves the agreement, but also makes the changes necessary to the city's classification and compensation plan, which is the document that is sent to PERS. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have no questions. Council, you have any comments for our city manager?
Happy first year.
Yes, busy first year.
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to make a motion if no one else would like to say anything. Oscar, yeah. Good. I'd like to make a recommendation motion to approve the First Amendment to the City Manager's Employment Agreement and adopt resolution number 10317, amending the city manager's salary schedule and the classification and compensation plan.
Very good. I'll second that.
We have a motion by Councilmember Miller and a second by Holmes. Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Holmes?
Aye.
Councilmember Miller?
Aye.
Councilmember Ramos Amit?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ortiz?
Aye.
And Mayor Furman.
Aye. Congratulations on your first year, city manager. Thank you for your service and your staff. And we're taking center stage. So thank you. Appreciate it. So we'll move on to administrative items. Actually, item number 9.2 was resolution number 10323, adopting City of Indio Fiber Master Plan. Mr. Cousins, we handle this.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Ian Cousins, Director of Information Technology. As you know, the city has been working on a fiber master plan, and tonight we have finalized that plan and we're bringing forth our findings and recommendations. And with that, I'll turn it over to our consultants who should be on Zoom to give you a brief presentation on that.
Okay, well, hi, I'm Preston Young. I'm with Magellan Advisors. It's Mr. Mayor and City Council. It's been a pleasure to work with your city staff on being able to put this plan together. The city has a lot of really good things coming up. Joining me on the call is also Will Murat, who is a member of the Magellan team. And we're going to give you a fairly concise, quick little presentation on the report that we were able to put together. For some reason, I'm not finding my, can you guys all see my screen? I can't, I'm having an issue with the, well, anyway, so I'll just have to do it this way. Anyways.
You just go down to the bottom, that little tab on the bottom, and it puts you in slide position.
Down here somewhere?
You're right. You're right. Where it says notes.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I see it.
Go on, now keep going. One more. There you go.
This one. Oh my gosh. Thank you for that. I have to make myself, try to seem. Anyways, thank you for the opportunity to join you. I'm going to start over because that was a rather horrible beginning. So I am Preston Young. I was the project manager working with the city departments, especially Ian Cousins and Kevin Schneider on this project. And we're going to give you a quick kind of what we found and what we need to do going forward, hopefully. So what we kind of found, there's four main things that we found. One, 10% of the city lacks broadband competition. And that means that there's one provider, and that one provider can charge what they want, do what they want. Competition is essential for good, especially broadband, but for everything. It increases the reliability. It helps to lower pricing. It helps better customer service. It gives everybody a better broadband experience. The second thing that we found was the incumbents haven't really overbuilt some of the areas, especially in the Jewel and the downtown areas. There's a lot of space for economic development and economic growth. And the incumbents, when we're talking to them, are not going to expand into those areas at this time. So it is one thing that we found was the city is going to have to need to expand into those areas to try to help some of those areas get the broadband that they need for that economic development. The third thing that we found was the Coachella Valley Association of Governments they are a very big key stakeholder. They are very broadband minded, and they're very open to working with and partnering with all the different cities in the Coachella Valley. In particular, they are working on, and they have a traffic modernization project that they're doing throughout the whole valley. And in particular, within the city limits of Indio, you'll see on a map in a second, but there is a lot of opportunity to kind of partner and use their project to expand the network in an exponential manner. And at the same time, it saves a lot of money because you're not going to be having to hiring an engineer and do all sorts of stuff. They're going to be able to incorporate that into their current project. And the city managers reached out to them, and we've been discussing with their traffic team how to get this working and how to get a partnership going. And that has been started, the ball's been going, and that needs to continue. And then the last thing we found is that the city's going to have to find a partner that'll be able to engineer it, permit it, construct it, provide those services to some people, and also to maintain whatever network gets expanded throughout the city. There needs to be somebody that has that experience, that has the opportunity to supply those services, that has the knowledge and expertise and has been able to do that in the past. So this is, it's a three-phased design. Phase one, if you can see in the purple triangles are what would be city facilities, different community centers, city hall. There's a couple, there's 4 different fire stations, different people that need to be connected to, a couple city anchor institutions, some of the hospitals around town. Phase 2 is in blue, and that is the one that's leveraging most of that Cvac program, the project. And that will be taking broadband, or be able to provide fiber throughout. I mean, you can see it throughout the majority of the city. And also the green area is what would be considered that Jewel area, and also the downtown areas that are not served very well. And this is a plan that we get all of the broadband to support any of those areas, any of the economic growth. Those big, huge vacant lots would have fiber right by them. And then phase 3, which you can see in red, just kind of expands a little more on the network that would be built in phase 1 and phase 2. And those 2 city facilities are fire stations. They have current service, so they're not needing service. But if you could get to them, you could save money later in the future. The white arrow is, we've been contacted, the city was contacted by, I don't remember the developer's name, I think it was a couple different ones, where they're going to be putting a fairly large industrial development out in that area, and also a bunch of residential. And so when they talked to them on the phone, they were very interested in what would it take to get fiber out into those areas so they could also attract more people. So that would be that bottom little red line, would be able to support that, which is excellent for economic growth for the city. So in this slide here, you can see the actual costs associated with each phase. Phase 1, which would be the connecting all the city facilities together. The Cvac is what would be used, the conduit used for that, the traffic signal project. So I just called that Cvac. And then there's some new aerial, and then new underground, which is boring, directional drilling. That's the footages and what the average cost per foot that we found in the area. And then the extended would be what would be the cost of getting all of that built together. So you can see phase 1 is 1.8 million. Phase 2, which is a substantially big build, is 12.3 million. And then the extensions to those other couple city facilities in those new development areas is about 1.2 million. With the total price tag about 15 million, but we don't recommend. Anybody that's been involved in construction for very long knows that nothing is ever on budget. So we usually throw in there a 20% contingency, just to make sure that everybody's prepared for anything that might happen on those projects. So the recommendations we came up with, there's 7 recommendations. The first one is to create a broadband oversight committee, or that could be an individual, but what that is it's a group that is tasked with the furthering of broadband development, and that is working with Cvac in the state of California. They call it the Golden State Middle Mile Initiative. It used to be the Middle Mile Project or something, but it is somebody that is tasked to reach out and continue working with all of these different groups to find ways to, one, connect to the state network. How do we get Cvac more involved in a regional approach? How do we get, is there technologies coming up that the city would like to use for their own traffic modernization projects? Or is there something other, smart city applications? It's important to have somebody or a group that meet regularly, that can go over anything that's coming up and make sure that the city stays in touch with that. Recommendation number 2 is continue discussions with Cvac using that's the traffic project, and keep that going. The discussions have started. They're very interested in it. I don't know if the final exact costs have been arranged or how it's all going to work out, but that needs to continue. Third one, research and apply for grants. There's like a lot of grants. There's other grants that are out there. And this could be something that the Oversight Committee could be heavily involved in, is finding out what grants are available. How do we apply for them? How do we get that money, right? Number 4 would be issuing an RFP to find that private partner. It's hard if the local incumbents usually will try to partner, but you need to get an RFP out there and find out any possible people that could come in. The more different providers you have in town, the better. And it needs to be somebody that has the experience to build it, construct it, maintain it, on all the things that go along with it. Recommendation number 5 is build phase 1, which is connecting all the city facilities together. And there's a lot of different benefits of doing that, not just cost savings, but it also puts the city onto one common network. So your IT group they can sit in one building and there's no crazy, connections. It's one connection, one network. It's far more secure. It's a very easier way that they can maintain and control whatever services that they need. And that also would allow maybe for connections onto that backbone network through the state of California. So then after phase 1 is constructed, once everything gets constructed, you actually connect the city facilities onto a network. and you start supplying services to those. Once that is done, you can cancel the third-party leasing services that you have currently. And right now, the city pays about $145,000 a year for those services. And depending on, after all the engineering and everything else is done, and depending on what the needs are, you could cancel anywhere from $122,000 up to the entire thing. So you'd be able to save a substantial amount of money every year just by connecting everything to your own network. The last one, as funding, and after you find that public-private partner, we recommend that you build phase 2 of the network. And that is extremely important for, especially like the Jewel neighborhood, where you have all those there's some big businesses and industry over in that area now, but there's a lot of vacant land. And as we were talking to the developers and some other people around the area, if there was fiber available and they could get better broadband, they would be far more enticed to go move and build in that area. So it's extremely important, especially for the economic development, to get that. The areas where the incumbents will not build or can't build because they don't meet their profit margins, it's important that the city, tries to build into those areas and find a partner to do that. So that is the end of our presentation. Anything that you have, there is a rather lengthy report that we have submitted to the city. Feel free to read through that. And then we have any questions that you might have.
All right. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Young. Do we have any questions? Mayor Pro Tem, Councilmember Amit?
I don't have any questions of the consultant. Thank you for all the hard work that you've put into this. We've been talking about it for quite some time, and I want to thank Mr. Cousins for all the time that he's dedicated to this project as well. My comments will be for staff. I'm not afraid of the number. So city manager, you can take note of that. There is no need for oversight commission or committee. We have our community services commission that is more than willing and able to shepherd this project with Mr. Cousins. And the third one is we have a grant writing agency, don't we? Make this one of their priorities. And that would conclude my comments, City Manager.
Anyone else?
And so my thought was going along the same direction, and I was just going to jump in and ask the question, what would the plan be, or what approach could we take? How can we take bites of this in order to be able to implement this over a period of time?
I think the first step that we're moving towards right now is we are applying for a grant. It's called the LATA grant. It's through the Public Utilities Commission. It gives cities up to $500,000 or $1 million. And forgive me, I don't remember which the number is, to design and engineer the fiber optic network, the last mile, which is what we're talking about here.
Okay.
So I'm good with it, and thank you very much for all the hard work you did, because we have talked about this a long time. If we're going to move our businesses and our community back into the future, we're going to need to be able to have broadband and other services that they'll be able to utilize. And so Councilmember Amit was talking about, I agree, we don't need another commission, but which commission it goes, community service, sustainability, or whatever, I think something the staff needs to kind of decide and let it go to where it goes. But I just don't think another commission, a lot of our commissions are underutilized now, to give them a charter to help with this, to be able to do it. Like sustainability could be one of them, or even the planning commission. But I think I think it's a great job, and we should figure out how we can invest in this. And I think what Cvac's paying, like 7 or 8 million of it, if they have that opportunity, and to help us with their stuff they're doing.
I believe so.
So we're about 10 million, 12 million short.
Yeah.
Give or take. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. And I don't want to take all the credit for this. Kevin Snyder was definitely instrumental in this.
Everything's a team thing here.
Yes,
you know that. We all work together.
Collaborative.
So I think I would like to see that go to a commission, but I think it needs to decide staff which one fits best and which one has the most bandwidth to be able to help out. If it's a planning commission or whatever, so be it. But to start another commission, I just think defeats the purpose.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Bandwidth was a perfect
Maybe
word.
the Community Services Commission.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe the Community Services Commission will be a good one to take that on. But I did have a question on the public-private partnership. Can you give us a few more details on how that would work? And really what I'm looking for is as well, how is the pricing going to compare for our residents compared to what they currently have as an option?
Gosh, there is no one like set type of public-private partnership, unfortunately. Everywhere has their own things that's going to fit and that's going to work. Will Morat, the other member on my team, has a lot of experience dealing with, he's worked on the city side and he's worked with private companies on how those, well, you might want to weigh in a little bit and just what the different possibilities are. Some of them, if the city puts a lot more money in, you have a private partner will come in and maintain it and then use some type of revenue share. But I would like Will to kind of weigh in a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah, it really does range. I think what you want to do is you say, I have a public asset, public infrastructure that can be utilized to serve retail services. And you solicit partners and they come in and they give you their pitch. And some of them might say, residents look to be pretty well served. I can't really beat the price point, but I can certainly help your businesses. Here's a proposed price point. We might charge, gigabit services. And then that's in exchange for a revenue share typically. What percentage of their gross revenues will get shared back with the city in return for being able to use this network, this backbone network? It really depends, and there's an all number of factors of public benefits that can be added on to that, including Wi-Fi in public areas, connecting schools, connecting parks. So again, I think as Preston noted, you put out the RFP and you solicit it from carriers across the state and even out of state. So often we think that there's just 2 or 3 because that's what we have the options when we call up at home to connect our service. But there's dozens and dozens that can come in. Some of them will bring capital, some of them will bring services, and they'll all bring expertise.
Thank you.
All righty. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, Mr. Cousins and Mr. Snyder and to our consultants for all the work on this. This is definitely moving us into the next generation in our economic development. It's such important to have this broadband and grow. So we are all supportive of it. And I would just recommend that community service take on this. This is, they've been begging for more work. So this is a perfect opportunity, but thank you for this. Appreciate it. Mm-hmm. So do we need a motion on this?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. I'll make the motion to approve resolution number 10323, adopting the City of Indio Fiber Master Plan.
I'll second that.
Okay. Okay. Well, we have a motion by Councilmember Holmes and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Ortiz. Got a vote, please.
Councilmember Holmes.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramos Hamid.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ortiz.
Aye.
And Mayor Furman.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. So we will move on to our next item, which is public hearings. So our first item is item 10.1, resolution number 10319, approving power purchase agreement and site lease agreement with Nobel Energy Solutions, LLC, and making certain findings pursuant to Governor Code Section 421710 for the installation of carport mounted solar system at the new public safety campus. And our Deputy City Manager, Scott Trujillo, will be handling this.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Scott Trujillo, your Deputy City Manager. So for this public hearing item, let's talk solar, shade, and savings. I have just a brief PowerPoint presentation for you to talk about this power purchase agreement, also known as a PPA, as well as a site lease agreement with Nobel. So let's jump right into this. I'll start off with the summary of what we're discussing. So we're talking about a carport mounted solar system installed at the new public safety campus. If we were to, it's financed via a PPA with Nobel. If we proceed with this, this is what it nets. It nets the following. We're talking zero capital cost to the city to build and install these carports and the solar system. We actually go green by relying on this renewable energy and places less strain on IID's electrical grid. That's huge. We all know the challenges IID has and so forth. I think there was even a flex alert today that was occurring. So we're building this brand new facility and we're looking at 95% of the public safety campus's consumption will come off these solar panels. So that's pretty profound.
we would pay Nobel for the power produced by the system, probably beginning in fiscal year 23-24. And we're talking a large size of what this, the kilowatt hours being produced of clean energy here. The great thing is that the savings of over 600 metric tons of carbon dioxide. I put in some fun little facts in there for you. You can read in terms of equivalent emissions that we're going to save. And then the great news is the city realizes between $950,000 to $1.7 million in overall cost savings with this PPA. And keep in mind those two figures. I'll explain those as we continue. The last item there, Indio Police Department asked for adequate shade and carports when we embarked on this whole project. So we're going to be able to provide them over 40,000 square feet of shade. So Chief, you and your team will finally get what you requested. So here's a conceptual image and overview of the project itself. To kind of orient you on the side, that's Jackson Street, and on the bottom, if you will, that's Dr. Carry-On. So you have the existing police department on the left-hand side. So those carports are where we're going to install these. Right now, we're looking at 16 total carports, 15 of those with solar. The ones in yellow, we had to add those recently due to IID required easements. So as we're in design on this, we've had to adjust. Even if you look at the staff report just a few weeks ago, I think we put in 12 to 15 carports, and now we're up to 16. And so this has kind of grown, if you will, a bit. The carport number 1 in red, that's shade only, no solar. But again, kind of going back to what our end user, which is the police department, would utilize that for. We want to provide that. So we've also included that in the PPA itself. So some financial analysis and inputs and assumptions here. The costs we're avoiding up front right now, the original plan just a few weeks ago was 12 carports. Now we're at 16. So we're at $1.9 million that Nobel will have to put up that capital for to build these carports and so forth. So, and again, 95% of these solar system will cover that consumption. So now, if you look at the IID electricity rates from what it is today and what it'll be upon completion of the project, that will remain status quo, although annual increases will occur. Now, Nobel rates a bit higher, but keep in mind that they're also putting in almost $2 million worth of infrastructure up front. So in comparison, so there's two scenarios on here, and I've kind of circled those that just to kind of for ease of your eyes. Scenario 1, we don't go solar, but we build those carports and we just get our power from IID. If we go that route, well, in 20 years, we're in for 6.2 million. But if we go this route with Nobel putting in the carports and the solar, and we pay them, we're looking at $5.3 million. So there's net savings of that $951,000. And that's if we go the full 20 years on it. As they say in the commercial, but it gets better. So if we were to purchase this at 10 years, we would actually net about $1.7 million worth of savings here. So let me kind of go through this. If we maintain status quo, again, we decide to build those carports ourselves and purchase from IID, we're at $6.2 million in. 20-year PPA, there's the number. But if we were to, so my recommendation is we actually buy this out at 10 years. We own the system. We're no longer buying the power from them, and we're off to the races. So if we go the full 20 years, $951,000 in savings. We go 10, 1.7, as opposed to staying status quo, building carports, and then buying our power from IID. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know this is a public hearing item. Also in the audience with me today is Fred Bell, COO of Nobel Energy Solutions.
All right, thank you. This is a public hearing item, so I'll open the public hearing. City Clerk, do we have any comments?
No, Mayor.
No comments present, none online. So I will close the public hearing and open it up for council for questions, comments.
I just have a quick question. So, I mean, it seems like a no-brainer to buy it after 10 years, and I take it Nobel doesn't have an issue with that. would they maintain it then for us for a fee? And because we're not in the solar business, so we would make it into a maintenance agreement, I take it?
That'd be one option. Typically, for example, the teen center, we have those photovoltaic panels as well. And we maintain those ourselves through our public works department.
But we can do it, sure. We already have two.
If you're gonna, come up to the mic, please. Please state your name for the record, sir.
Just a wee bit shy. Fred Bell, I am a partner and I am the Bell in Nobel Energy, Chief Operating Officer. We can maintain it for you if you'd like. We have two other systems with you right now, which is City Hall and the Operations Center, and those are on 20-year PPAs. You have a similar buyout provision, and we maintain them now. The one piece that you can't quantify with this is the technology exposure risk, and that we didn't qualify in this, but that's another advantage of going with the PPAs. You put all of the technology risk on us, and you guys don't have to deal with that. And what that means is you don't have to deal with the warranty issues or any of the other challenges of shaking down a new system. So this project is fully funded. We have the capital, and we're ready to move forward.
Great. Thank you. I have no questions or comments. Get a motion.
I think it's a pretty much.
I have a question.
You have a question?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Go
ahead.
Mr. Trujillo, on the first page of your PowerPoint presentation, it said solar panel degradation 50% or 0.50%. What does that mean?
We'll bring up the expert.
Hi, Fred.
Hello, I'm back. What that means is that the panels will degrade 0.5% a year. We put that in, and what that means is they're less efficient. They just wear out over time. That's 0.5% a year. What we're actually seeing in the desert, and like Xavier, which is a system now that's 12 years old, or almost 12 years old, is that we're not seeing that degradation, but we can't just say that that's not going to happen. So we put that in there, but efficiency, that system is running at about 96% efficiency. And, over time, they do wear out, but that's built into the model as a safeguard.
Thank you.
That's good. Thank you.
So, Scott, do we have to decide which one are we going to approve this, and then we can decide if we want to buy it out later? That would be staff and council's decision later on, or is that something we have to decide now?
No, we will decide that at a later date.
Okay, perfect. Then if nobody has it, I'm more than happy to make a recommendation to adopt resolution number 10319, making certain findings and approvals, certain agreements as described therein for purchasing solar power from Noble Energy Solutions LLC for a carport mounted solar power system at the new public safety campus parking lot.
I'll second that motion.
All right. We have a motion by Councilmember Miller, a second by Councilmember Holmes. Could I have a vote, please?
Councilmember Holmes?
Aye.
Councilmember Miller?
Aye.
Councilmember Ramos Amit?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ortiz?
Aye, and thank you to our staff for bringing this up. Appreciate it.
And Mayor Furman?
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bell.
Thank you very much.
So we'll move on to item 10.2, is resolution number 10315, establishing and adopting a fee schedule for the administration of the City of Indio Cannabis Storefront retail fee. Schedule is exempt from review under CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines, section 15061B3. This will be handled by our Director of Community Development, Mr. Kevin Snyder.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Members of the City Council, again, Kevin Snyder, Director of Community Development. So over the last several months, the City Council has been working on the implementation of the city's cannabis storefront retail program. And you're at the proverbial last step of that process in terms of setting up the program. On July 20th, the council conducted a study session and reviewed potential fees that would be charged. As a reminder, those fees were developed in concert with HDL and our finance department, and were based on fully loaded rates of staff time to provide the services. And please keep in mind that the provision of services, there is a cost. When we are conducting this program, all aspects of the programs that you've established by ordinance and resolution, there is a cost to that. This is also a policy decision. So the fees that are being proposed this evening in the resolution are a legislative action by the council, a policy action to establish a reasonable cost recovery for the provision of services to operate and administer the cannabis storefront retail program. So the city council went through this fee schedule extensively and gave staff direction. So we are bringing back this evening the proposed fee schedule, which represents your direction on July 20th. Up on the screen, as a reminder, we did look at the fees of other jurisdictions, both within the Coachella Valley and outside. And as indicated, we are somewhat mid-range in both the annual regulatory fee and also the storefront application fee. We are slightly below the averages for all of those. So I think our fees are competitive. And they do, again, represent what staff believes, looking at the fiscal impacts of providing these services, is a reasonable cost recovery. So staff is recommending that you, after you conduct the public hearing, that you consider the adoption of resolution 10315 that would adopt the cannabis storefront retail program. Now, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. This is a public hearing item, so I will open the public hearing and ask our clerk, do we have any public comments?
No comments, Mayor.
So we have no public comments, so I will close the public hearing and open it
Mayor,
up.
Mayor, you have a comment that just popped up on Zoom.
Okay, I will reopen the public hearing and I will take a comment on Zoom.
Thank you, City Attorney. That is Simone Sandoval.
Great, thank you. Great, thank you so much. My name is Simone Sandoval. I am a Coachella Valley resident. I'm a CVCAN board member, which is the Coachella Valley Cannabis Alliance Network. And I'm also the Director of Licensing and Compliance for Global Go, which is a cannabis consulting firm that I've been working with since 2017, specifically licensing cannabis businesses within the Coachella Valley. I just want to start by saying thank you for administering this program. We're excited to see retail licensing coming up in Indio, and we understand that there are costs associated with processing these applications, especially a competitive merit-based application. I just respectfully request that you guys maybe give a little bit more consideration to removing that annual regulatory fee, because you have set that at $23,000 on top of an application fee, on top of a renewal fee. So that chart comparison that staff presented, in my opinion, isn't quite correct, because you have on there that Palm Springs is charging $10,000 for an annual regulatory fee and also $10,000 for an application fee, when that's just not the case. There's only one fee in Palm Springs. That's the application fee, or if you're renewing, the renewal fee, which is the same. So I just would like a little bit more discussion on how staff arrived at that $23,000 in addition to those other fees. And I did submit written public comment that has a breakdown on the cannabis fees that I've collected, speaking to and working with the different jurisdictions within the Coachella Valley, as well as unincorporated Riverside. I just want to give a big appreciation to not putting, cannabis retail through a conditional use permit process. So I understand there may be, additional fees that you'll have to collect in order to process all of the applications. But just respectfully request that you guys give a little consideration to either reducing or completely removing that regulatory fee, or explaining, how you came to that conclusion on top of the application fees you're charging. So thank you.
Righty, thank you for your comment.
And I have no other comments, Mayor.
No other comments? All right, so I will close the public hearing and open it up for council for any discussion or questions of staff.
I'd like to hear the explanation.
Sure. So as a reminder, we've discussed with you in the past that we did analyze the cost of providing the services, and waiting for my screen to come back. We did look at it in the context of, again, those fully loaded rates, and the fully loaded rates are the salaries and benefits of staff people involved in the review process at different levels, and that equates to the cost centers. So what we did is, if you look at this particular screen, and I'm just going to get my copy because my eyesight is not that good. What we did is, the first screen here breaks down the $10,856 that we're proposing as the application fee. And as you can see, we went through an extensive breakdown and itemization, if you will, of looking at how much the different aspects of providing the services for review and consideration would cost. Thank you for the magnification. And that's where we arrived at that fee. So the commenter's question was then on the annual regulatory fee. So we then looked at what the provision of the annual regulatory fee would cost us. Again, using that same itemized basis, looking at the key aspects of the monitoring, compliance, auditing aspects of that program. And as you may remember, when you approved the Cannabis Storefront Regulatory Program, it comes with a number of conditions to make sure that these businesses operate in the manner that the City Council expects. So that is the basis on that breakdown of that $23,000. Now, it is true that other cities in the Coachella Valley may not charge an annual regulatory fee or may charge a lower regulatory fee. In many instances, those cities have adopted the cannabis business taxes, and they have another source of revenue to address the cost of the provision of services. We currently do not have that. So this represents the real and true cost of providing those services based on those loaded rates and the assumed hours for the provision of those services. If the City Council wants to look at a different rate, in essence, you will be looking at the general fund subsidizing the provision of services for a lower rate or no rate for an annual regulatory fee.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. I think that answers the questions. There's been an extensive discussion about this, and so we can't address the public comment, but thank you for answering that. Any other questions or comments from Mr. Snyder? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'm more than happy to adopt resolution number 10315, establishing and adopting a fee schedule for the administration of the City of Indio Cannabis Storefront Retail Business Permitting Program, and to determine that the adoption of the fee schedule is exempt from review under CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15061B3.
I'll second that.
We got a first and a second.
We got a first and a second. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Holmes.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramos Amit.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ortiz.
Aye.
And Mayor Furman.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Snyder. And we'll move on to item 10.1, resolution number 10318, approving tentative parcel map number 38262, new commercial parcels, and one remainder parcel located at 49730 Jefferson Street, accessor parcel number 602-090-006, and this will be handled by Director of Community Development, Mr. Kevin Snyder.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the City Council, again, Kevin Snyder, Director of Community Development. As the Mayor indicated, this proposed resolution involves a tentative parcel map. At this time, I'd like to invite up Assistant Planner Manuel Rocha to provide a staff report and answer any questions that the City Council might have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and council members. Manuel Rocha, Assistant Planner with the Community Development Department. So item 10.3 is an application for tentative parcel map number 38262, requested by the applicant Canopy LP, a California limited partnership. The project is located at 49730 Jefferson Street, east of Jefferson Street and north of Avenue 50. The project was subdivided in approximately 8.48 acre parcel into 4 commercial parcels and one remainder parcel for future residential and or commercial development. The parcel has a land use designation of neighborhood center and is owned under the Citrus Plaza 2 specific plan. The project has been found to be exempt from environmental review pursuant to section 15315, minor land divisions of the CEQA guidelines. As conditioned, the project is consistent with the required findings of the Subdivision Map Act. The figure before you represents the proposed tentative parcel map number 38262. As mentioned, the project would subdivide an approximately 8.48 acre parcel into 4 commercial parcels and one remainder parcel for future residential and or commercial development. As shown on the table to the left, there is a breakdown of the parcel sizes being proposed, ranging from 0.7 acres to 3.47 acres. In conclusion, staff recommends that City Council adopt resolution number 10318 to subdivide a 8.4 acre parcel of land into 4 single commercial parcels and 1 remainder parcel located at 49730 Jefferson Street, and determine that the project is exempt from environmental review pursuant to section 15315.
All right. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Rocha. This is a public hearing item, so I will open a public hearing and ask our city clerk, do we have any comments?
No comments, Mayor.
Okay, before I move too fast, we'll make sure we don't have anyone online. So we have no public comment, so I will close the public hearing and open it up for staff for questions, comments, or a motion.
Just a quick question, if I could, Mayor.
Okay.
So the applicant, I know where the property is. Is he dividing it up to sell parcels of it off, or what is the idea behind it? Because he built it all as one. Is he?
So sorry.
Go ahead.
It would be for potential sale in the future if ever needed.
And then the one parcel that he has kept, he separate. That's the one he's going to keep for himself. Then I take that. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
So there's no other questions or comments.
Can they put the map back up?
Okay.
There we go.
I can't tell which is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's very light.
Yeah.
The bottom left-hand corner is 1, and it goes up from there.
4 is in the middle. Yeah. It's all the extra stuff.
I guess I'm having, where's north? Okay, there's north. So parcel 1 is where the gas station is. Parcel 2 and 3 are the pads. Which is parcel 4? Oh, the center. And then the rear is the remainder?
Retention basin and all that? Correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for that? That's it.
No. Looks like a great project.
Yeah.
I'll motion to adopt resolution number 10318, approving tentative parcel map number 38262 TPM 2203-415 to subdivide a 8.48 acre parcel of land into 4 new commercial parcels and 1 remainder parcel located at 49730 Jefferson Street, and determine the project is exempt from environmental review pursuant to section 15315 minor land divisions of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA guidelines.
I'll second that motion.
All right. A motion by Mayor Pro Tem Ortiz and a second by Councilmember Holmes. Could I have a vote, please?
Councilmember Holmes.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramos Hamid.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ortiz.
Aye.
And Mayor Furman.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Rocha.
Thank you.
So move on to item 10.4, which is resolution number 10321, making a finding of consistency with the program environmental impact report for the General Plan 2040 certified by the City of Indio on September 18, 2019 for the amendments of Chapter 3 Land Use and Urban Design of the General Plan 2040 for the amendments of the General Plan Use Designation Map for the repeal of Chapters 150 and 159 of title. Somebody help me up with Roman numerals. 15. All right. Of the Indio Municipal Code for the adoption of the Indio Unified Development Code and repeal of current citywide zoning map and adoption of the new citywide zoning map. And this will be handled by Director of Community Development, Kevin Snyder. Kevin, did you write this? Because you guys trying to get me on this one, huh?
I almost got you.
All right.
Mayor, member of the City Council, again, Kevin Snyder, Director of Community Development. So the presentation tonight is going to be a little bit different. So the next 3 agenda items, inclusive of the one the mayor just read, are all interrelated. And it is part of a journey that this city has been on, this City Council and your Planning Commission has been on for several years. So this evening, when you hear the presentation from our consultant team, we're going to cover it all in one presentation. So you won't have to hear another presentation and another presentation. Before I turn it over to the consultant team, I had a couple of remarks I wanted to make. First, I want to remind the City Council that on September 18th, 2019, you adopted the General Plan 2040. Following that, we had to do a Herculean task. We had to bring the zoning regulations of the city, which had not been updated since 1994 in any significant way, into compliance with the new general plan, the bold vision that this city council adopted for the city of Indio for the next 20 years. What we thought would be an easy task became much more, but I think it resulted in something great for the city. What it became is a overall unified development code. And I'm going to talk more about that in a second, and so is the consultant. But what we had to do is we had to do a couple things to get there. One, we had to figure out, could we comply with CEQA? And the great thing is that you as the city council authorized us to conduct an environmental impact report with our General Plan 2040, a very comprehensive document that really provided a foundation for us to be able to deliver this resolution regarding the finding of consistency and the next resolution and the ordinance that we'll talk about in a minute to you. But in the CEQA world, we stand on solid footing because we did all the work up front. It cost time, it cost money, but it paid off in the end for the city council, for the planning commission, for the community. So, I want to say thank you to the city council for making that investment because it paid off for us. We were able to extensively rely upon the CEQA work that was done previously, that environmental impact report, to get to this finding of consistency. And in CEQA world, getting a finding of consistency is a big deal. So thank you to that. I'm going to touch on the other items on the agenda as well. You have another resolution that you'll hear about general plan amendments. So as we went through the process of looking at these zoning regulations, we caught some things that we needed to fix in the general plan. And so that's what that resolution does. It's getting us aligned so that our general plan and our zoning regulations are consistent. And then finally, you're going to have an ordinance 1782, that is going to propose the adoption of the Unified Development Code. If you've had a chance to look at the Unified Development Code, it's probably like no development code you may have seen in recent history for the city of Indio. Gone are lists of texts, gone are vague terms. I've been doing this 30 years and I struggled to understand our zoning regulations sometime. What we've put in place is what we call Unified Development Code. The intent was to bring all of our development regulations into one place so that the user, whether it be a property owner, a business owner, a consultant, a developer, would be able to go to one place and find the development regulations and not have to go on a treasure hunt through our municipal code. And so that's what the Unified Development Code did, is put everything in one location. It also, I believe, provided a great combination of tables, figures, and picture graphics to explain what we were asking folks to do in the city of Indio. And that is important because sometimes when you read text, everyone can read it differently. But these figures, the pictures, and the tables are, I believe, help clarify and guide individuals using it. The other thing we did is we made it so that everything you see before you this evening is consistent with current laws of the state of California, in particular, the housing laws. And the council has heard a lot about the housing laws recently with the housing element. And finally, and I'm just going to note, earlier in your agenda, you talked about landscaping. And we're going to touch on that in the consultant presentation. But we have over 5 pages of guidelines and standards for landscaping to really promote the things that the council was talking about earlier. No, it does not prohibit grass outright or turf outright in the city, but it does limit it. And it does promote native vegetation, and it does promote drought tolerant vegetation, and it does promote the idea of having consistency with the water efficiency model ordinance that the city council adopted several years ago. So as we get to that part of the presentation, or any time, if you want to go more into that, we can certainly talk about that. But the final thing I want to say is I want to extend my thanks to the city council. I joined the city when the general plan was already in motion. And there was a lot of work done for that. There's been a lot of work done for this. Thank you for the support of the city council because this took a lot longer than I thought it was going to. It's 2+ years now. Thank you to your planning commission. Your planning commission has done yeoman's work on this. We put them through 6 study sessions in 4 months, and some of those study sessions ran 2 to 3 hours each. They worked hard to give you a document that they felt comfortable with. Thank you to the staff that have been involved in this, and there's a variety of staff from different departments. I also want to say thank you to someone who's no longer part of my department, but is part of the Community Services Department, former senior planner Layla Nambar. She was instrumental in helping getting this project off the ground and was a partner in crime for many, many months. So I want to thank her. And then finally, I'm going to turn it over to the consultants, and I want to thank them. Ramey and Associates and Lisa Wise Consulting became very much partners in this effort. And believe me, I didn't make it easy for them because I had a lot of questions. I challenged them, and they always came back with good advice and good input that I think was for the betterment of the city. So with that, Mayor, if you're okay, I'd like to turn it over to the consultants. They're going to provide a presentation. And obviously, this is a public hearing item, and there's 3 agenda items, but it's going to, again, we're going to go over all 3 items in one presentation to hopefully make the evening more efficient for you. Thank you.
Thank you. The floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor Furman and members of the City Council. I'm Simran Malhotra. I'm a principal with Ramey and Associates, and I'm very pleased to be here presenting the Unified Development Code to you today. With me, I have Alessandra Landine, who's been the project manager for this project and done most of the heavy lifting. And she'll be presenting part of the presentation. And then we have Roger Eastman with Lisa Weiss Consulting, who helped us with the sign code and the special uses section of the zoning code. Rincon Consultants helped with the environmental clearance, the finding of consistency that Director Snyder mentioned earlier. Next slide, please.
Simran, this is Kevin. Can you speak up a little bit more so that's clearer on this end? Thank you.
Oh, sure. So what we have in the presentation today is overview of how the development code has been organized, what the zoning map looks like, the revisions we've made since the public draft was released, the input we received from the Planning Commission during the study sessions and at the hearing we had with them last month. We'll also go over the general plan amendments, both the text and the map changes, and then present the Planning Commission's recommendation for City Council to approve the resolutions in front of you. Next, please. So as Director Snyder mentioned, the Zoning Code Update Project is a comprehensive update of chapters 150 and 159 of the Indio Municipal Code. And these have been combined into one document, a unified development code, so that it creates a consistent, modern, well-organized, and highly illustrated document that is user-friendly. It allows developers, property owners, designers, architects, and others to be able to refer to one document that they can easily use as they consider designing or proposing development on any parcel within the city. The other important part of this update was to ensure consistency with the general plan, which was adopted in 2019. There were the zoning code, which hadn't been updated in 25 plus years. There were a lot of inconsistencies, and those have been resolved. In addition, there have been several state and federal laws related to both housing, as far as state of California is concerned, and signs that the sign code needed to address. And those changes have been addressed in this document as well. Along with the zoning code update, we have prepared a zoning map that is consistent with the Indio 2040 general plan. And we've also amended the general plan map and the land use element to conform to state law and to be consistent with zoning. Next slide, please. So as we embarked on this 2+ year process, we wanted to ensure that the public, the residents, and the property owners in the city got several opportunities to provide any feedback that they might have. So in order to do that, we had several ways we got that input. Firstly, the city sent a mailer to every resident in the city informing them about this project and invited them to attend the 6 study sessions with the Planning Commission to provide their feedback. We also created a project website, which is a part of the city's website, and that had information on the project, and it also provided a link to an interactive map tool that allowed anyone using that tool to see what the current designation for their property was and what the new designation for that property might be. So that allowed a very detailed way for someone to look at their proposed and previous zoning. Next slide. The public also had an opportunity to provide feedback at the study sessions I mentioned, as well as at the hearing with the Planning Commission. The Riverside County, ALUC, the Airport Land Use Commission also reviewed the code and the zoning map in June and provided feedback. And the city has also sent a mailer to every property owner in the city about these adoption hearings. We had the Planning Commission hearing in July and the hearing in front of you today. Next slide, please. And the Planning Commission at their July 13th meeting considered the 3 items in front of you today and unanimously recommended the general plan amendments and the Unified Development Code for adoption by the City Council. It was, as I mentioned, unanimous. And now I will turn this over to Alessandra to walk us through the Unified Development Code, the zoning map, and the general plan amendments.
Thank you, Simran. Good evening, Mayor Furman and council members. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. As Simran mentioned, I'm going to provide a brief overview of the Unified Development Code and zoning map, the general plan amendments, and the CEQA finding of consistency. So the following slide provides a high-level table of contents for the Unified Development Code, and I'm going to walk through each of these in more detail on the coming slides. The sign code, just so you know, is included in Article 3 for citywide standards. And then it's also important to note here that Article 5 is going to be incorporated at a later date. That's going to be updated by the city or by staff later. Let's see here. So Article 1 includes the introductory provisions for the code, including the purpose and authority, establishment of zones, and the official zoning map, and a chapter on how to use the code. Article 2 includes all of the zone-specific regulations, and it's broken up into chapters by broad land use categories. So we have the residential zones, the mixed-use zones, non-residential zones, so commercial, office, and industrial, public and institutional zones, specific plan and project master plan zones, and overlay zones. And each of the chapters includes a table of the permitted, conditionally permitted, and prohibited uses by zone, as well as all the development standards for each zone. The mixed use zones chapter also provides detailed objective design standards for detached single-family residential developments, mixed use developments, and multifamily residential developments. So that's definitely new to this code. Article 3 provides all of the regulations that apply citywide or to multiple zones in the city. And these include general site development standards for site design, setbacks and encroachments, services, utilities and refuse and recycling, landscaping, fences, walls, and screening, and outdoor lighting, among others. So for example, and I think Kevin kind of alluded to this before, the revised landscaping standards for the city include requirements for the use of high efficiency irrigation systems, limitations on turf, and minimum percentage of drought tolerant and native plantings. So in general, this section of the code is really much more robust than it used to be in the existing code. Article 3 also includes parking and loading requirements, performance standards, sign regulations, and the art and public places ordinance, which was incorporated without any changes. The existing Chapter 150 billboards and signs of the municipal code has been comprehensively revised and included in Article 3. It includes general provisions, administration and procedures, sign standards by zone, general sign requirements, and permanent sign standards. Additionally, the revised sign regulations have added sign design and performance standards to encourage permanent signs with design features that are preferred by the city and the community at large. So that's new to this code. And lastly, this chapter provides regulations for temporary sign types such as banners, A-frame signs, and the like. Article 4 provides site planning, development, and operating standards for specific uses or activities in the city that require special standards to ensure compatibility with neighboring uses and/or health and safety. So, for example, it includes regulations for animal keeping, auto service and repair stations and fueling stations, drive-through uses, home occupations, mini storage facilities, pawn shops, RV parks, thrift shops, and temporary uses, just to name a few of those. And some of these include as well, I'll just mention, distance requirements between establishments for things like, or distances between certain types of uses and more sensitive uses like churches, schools, parks, and such for things like smoke shops and adult-oriented businesses. Article 6 covers administration and procedures related to land use and development. At the beginning of the article, we have a very large table summarizing the review authorities for various types of decisions and appeals. Chapter 6.03 covers common procedures such as application forms and fees, pre-application review, public noticing requirements, and appeals, among others. Chapter 6.04 includes all of the permits and approvals, such as planning review, use permits, including administrative use permits and conditional use permits, temporary use permits, and variances, among others. The article also includes procedures for general plan and zoning amendments and other types of plans, such as specific plans and development agreements. And lastly, this article provides non-conforming provisions and enforcement and abatement procedures. And again, as Simran mentioned earlier, we updated this part of the code to address recent changes in state law, particularly for review and approval of housing projects. Lastly, I just wanted to walk through a couple of key revisions since the public draft. So as Simran mentioned, we held a series of 6 Planning Commission study sessions to walk through the public draft code over the last few months. And based on the staff and Planning Commission recommendations, I wanted to highlight a few of the minor revisions that have been made since the public draft was released. There were a few additions and revisions made to the refuse and recycling section in Article 3. In Article 4, special uses, we added the commercial cannabis regulations per the recently adopted cannabis ordinance number 1779. We also added a requirement for ground floor retail or office uses on the ground floor of mini storage or warehousing facilities to encourage more active frontage types for these types of facilities. And then lastly, we made a few minor updates to Article 6, administration and procedures. The key change being edits to the calls for review section, and that was based on Planning Commission recommendations. So on this slide, you'll see the new zoning map for the city, and I'll walk through the new zones on the coming slides. This table provides a list of all the new zones in the city and their density or intensity, as well as the existing or old zoning districts that correspond to the new zones. There are 4 residential zones and 6 mixed-use zones in the city. The 2040 general plan adopted in 2019 included one suburban neighborhoods and 1 connected neighborhoods land use designation. We actually split these designations into 2 zones each to provide a more nuanced or smaller density range for each, and to conform to some of the new state laws that have come out since the general plan was adopted. And I'll talk about this a little bit more when I go through the proposed general plan amendments. The table continues onto this slide. So you'll see here, the new code includes 4 new non-residential zones. So light industrial, heavy industrial, regional, commercial, and resource recovery, 2 public and institutional zones, and 4 overlay zones, including, of course, the major music festival overlay zone, which was adopted as is into the code. So that concludes the overview of the Unified Development Code. And next, I'm going to walk through the accompanying general plan amendments. So we are proposing several amendments to the adopted Indio General Plan 2040 text and land use map to address the required consistency with the Unified Development Code and to address recent changes in state housing laws. So this includes splitting the suburban neighborhoods land use designation into 2 new designations, so suburban neighborhoods low and suburban neighborhoods high. We're also splitting the connected neighborhoods land use designation into 2 designations, connected neighborhoods low and connected neighborhoods high. We have incorporated the Desert Estates transition land use designation that was previously established by the City Council, so it's now going to be fully incorporated into the general plan. We've also redesignated parcels on the general plan land use map per these new designations. So again, per the split to 2 suburban neighborhoods and 2 connected neighborhoods designations. And we've also made a few minor fixes to the general plan land use map to address zoning consistency, property ownership, and existing land uses on the ground today. Here you will see the revised general plan map. With these changes, you might notice that the general plan map and zoning map are almost identical in that they will now have an almost 1-to-1 correlation between general plan land use designations and implementing zones. And this should really make things easier moving forward for the city. And lastly, we had Rincon Associates, our environmental consultants. They did an analysis of the proposed general plan amendments and Unified Development Code and found that there would be no significant environmental impacts beyond those identified in the 2019 general plan EIR. And therefore, they prepared a finding of consistency stating that the proposed project is consistent with the city's general plan 2040 EIR. Oops, sorry. I think I was on the wrong slide for a second there. Sorry about that. Now you can see the text that I was just referring to. And that concludes our presentation for this evening. And we wanted to open it up for questions, discussion.
All right.
So, Mayor, thank you and Council for your indulgence. I know that was a long presentation, but honestly, this is a big deal. You're changing the zoning regulations of the city for the first time, effectively almost 30 years. But the agenda is set out for public hearings on each item. So staff recommends that the City Council conduct public hearings on each item as agendized, although our presentation covered all of the 3 items left on your agenda this evening. So that is the staff recommendation. So at this time, we would recommend you start with resolution 10321, followed by 10322, and then end with ordinance 1782. Thank you.
We will start with this item 10.4 is public hearing item. So I will open the public hearing, and I do have one request to speak for item 10.4, and that's Mr. Polo Doria. Okay. Mr. Doria, you have 10.4 and 10.5 on here. Would you like to address all this? Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, because this is a public hearing only for item 10.4, which is the environmental impact report, comments should be limited to that. So that way the record for the general plan amendment, which is 10.5, those comments get into that record. And of course, for the actual zoning code amendment, that is item 10.6. So the speaker may have to come up twice.
Oh, you're fine. Come on up. I'm just going to call you up a couple times. So you have one here, 10.3, 10.4, and 5.
I understand. I'll defer to 10.6, I believe.
So
is that correct?
So you want to add 10.6 and you just want to speak on that last one?
That's correct.
Okay, so I'll call you back up for
Thank you.
10.6 already. All righty, so that means I have no public comment. So I will close the public comment and open up for council for any comments, questions.
If I could, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Kevin, for bringing this forward. I know what great amount of work it was and how difficult it is. So with the planning commission, you said they have voted for it unanimously. Is there any concerns or questions with this part when you start talking land uses and that? I know we're changing a few things here and there. Is there any feedback from any of the owners of properties that have balked at any of this being changed based on what their current uses are compared to what the new uses are going to be?
Yeah. The short answer is not a lot.
Okay.
We did extensive public outreach. We sent citywide over 30,000 properties in the city 2 times. And we did have some folks in attendance. Several of those folks were interested in changing their general plan designation to make their properties more marketable. However, as a practice, we did not do individual considerations in terms of the general plan amendments and or the zoning considerations. So staff will be working with them to come back at a later time to potentially present to council for your consideration changes in their general plan designations. I believe Mr. Doria is going to come up in a short while and talk about an idea he has for one of the regulations that we are proposing. And certainly you can hear from him and staff has some thoughts on his idea. He was gracious enough to share his thoughts with us and we had an opportunity to speak with him about it. So I think we can provide some feedback on that. But I would say in summary, a very limited amount of public input, but I think it also represents the fact that we did our job. We know the council takes public engagement seriously. We, as was pointed out by the consultant, we did a variety of actions and we gave full opportunity and full transparency for folks to participate if they wanted to.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
That's it.
I just wanted to say thank you. This was an enormous job and a hair pulling job and, no small task over such a significant amount of time. And so hats off to you and to staff for the days and nights, the hair pulling, the challenges, and trying to wade through all this information and really pull together something that is as comprehensive as it is. So thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem or Councilman Ramirez, I can't see you on the screen.
Take the timer down.
Yeah.
Please.
I have questions and comments, but are we only on 10.4 right now?
We should be limiting our comments only on the EIR. That way we have the appropriate comments and questions for each item because it's separate.
That's what I thought. I have no questions or comments on 10.4.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion.
I'll motion to approve resolution number 10321, making a finding of consistency with the program environmental impact report for the general plan 2040 certified by the City Council on September 18, 2019 for the amendments to Chapter 3, Land Use and Urban Design of the General Plan 2040 for the amendments to the General Plan Land Use Designation Map for the repeal of Chapters 150 and 159 of Title 15 of the Indio Municipal Code for the adoption of the Indio Unified Development Code and the repeal of the current citywide zoning map and adoption of the new citywide zoning map.
I'll second that motion and also for the record, planning is very dry, just so you know that.
So we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Ortiz, a second by Councilmember Miller. Could I have a vote, please?
Councilmember Holmes.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramos Amit.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ortiz.
Aye.
And Mayor Furman.
Aye, the motion passes. And now we'll move on to item 10.5, which is resolution number 10322, approving the general plan amendment, amending chapter 3 land use and urban design of the general plan 2040 and amending general plan land use designation map. Mr. Snyder will also be heading this.
Mayor, very simply, as discussed earlier, there are proposed amendments to the general plan text and also to the general plan land use designation map. These amendments, as reported by the consultants, would help us address consistencies, would also implement the new designations that the consultant discussed. And so staff is recommending that your consideration for adoption of resolution 10322, and happy to answer any questions that the council might have. Thank you.
And I would add, Mr. Mayor, that the presentation by the consultants on the general plan amendment just be incorporated into the record for this particular public hearing item. Thank you.
Great, thank you. This is a public hearing item, so I will open the public hearing and ask the clerk, do we have any for public comments?
No public comments, Mayor.
Okay, no public comments, so I will close the public hearing and open it up for council for discussion. I see Councilmember Ramirez has their hand raised.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Snyder, I'd like to recommend a friendly amendment to the title of your resolution. Is it a resolution? Yeah, it's a resolution. Just like the city manager amendment is titled First Amendment to the City Manager Employment Agreement, I feel it's important that we keep the title of this resolution First Amendment to the General Plan, just for future reference and being able to search the First Amendment and so on. And I noticed in the maps, the first map was X'd out. And I did see the red line changes that you are proposing. But how significant did the map change? Because I can only notice what's changed in District 5, but I'm not sure what all changed.
Alessandra, can you bring the map back up, please? Just so for the benefit of the council members. And in summary, Councilmember Smith, there weren't a lot of changes if in the whole of the number of properties in the city. So as Alessandra brings that map back up, there were a limited number of changes we felt were necessary to address zoning consistency and the errors, minor errors that Alessandra had pointed out. But hopefully Alessandra can get that map back up here soon.
You're talking about the designation colors on the map, because that's what I'm noticing, that there are some variations.
Correct.
Some parcels that were a certain color are now a different color.
Correct. Hopefully we can get that map up so I easier to.
I wanted to show you, sorry, I was trying to pull up, I have it now. Just the general plan amendments themselves. Is that, Kevin, would you like that, or do you want the full one?
The map 3-13 and 3-14, or page something 28 of 86 and 29 of 86.
Okay, I'll just open the PowerPoint again that had the general plan map in it, if that's okay. Does that work?
Yes, that would be great.
Go ahead.
Let's see here. Sure. Sorry for the delay. Technical difficulties.
Well, she's bringing that up. Maybe I can just make a comment on the request to name this the First Amendment to the general plan. Kevin, is this, how many general plan amendments have we done this year? And just for the education of the council and the public, you're allowed to do 4 general plan amendments a year. So that may play into whether, if we've done several, then naming it first will not really coincide with what we've done. But it looks like the map's up. So why don't we turn to that?
Yeah, very quickly to the city attorney's point, in the calendar year 2022, so far this would be the first general plan amendment. And as the city attorney noted, you're allowed 4 a total of 4 within a given year.
Calendar.
I believe it's a calendar year. Is my correct? City
Calendar
Attorney?
year. That's correct.
So the map is up, and but Councilmember Ramos-Smith, are you, just so we're clear that we have the right map up for you, are you referring to the map that just shows the changes, not this fully revised map? There's a map that just shows the changes, which is just a limited number of parcels.
Well, in my staff report packet, there's only the map that has the X and the map that you are now displaying. So I don't know of a map that has the changes.
So Allison,
yeah,
can
we didn't include that in the chapter 3,
right.
but we do have a separate map that just shows the parcels that are changing, and I have that up and I can change my screen.
Yes, if you could.
Like, okay. Let's see, let me close out of the PowerPoint and put this screen. Having trouble resizing things.
I believe that this is the map you're referring to, Councilmember. Is that correct?
Well, I haven't seen this map, so these are the changes.
Correct. So,
yes. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kevin.
no, so what I was going to say is that attached as Exhibit B to the staff report is this map that is up on the screen that's being shown right now, and this shows where actual changes were made on a parcel basis. The previous map that Alessandra had up is the updated map incorporating these changes that will be adopted. So this isn't intended to give the council a perspective on a more parcelized basis of what the limited number of general plan amendments occurred. And we can certainly walk the council through this if they would like.
Well, I can only speak to District 5. If we'll scroll down there, I'm not sure the other colleagues have any concerns, but we are now coding the Plantation Men's Golf Course private as mixed use neighborhood. And previously it was parks and open space for a reason, because they did a density transfer in order for all the other development to occur on that 640 acre section of land. So I don't think it's appropriate for us to now designate it as, what are we designating? Desert Estates transition or mixed use? What color is that?
That's Desert Estates transition.
Yeah. So how does that jive, Kevin, if we've already density transferred that whole section to remain parks and open space, and now you're allowing that density bonus transfer to basically disappear?
So, and I have to admit, I have limited knowledge of this density transfer you're referring to, Councilmember. So I'll speak as best as I can, and if I fail, please help me if you have more information than I do. But the intent there was recognition that this is privately owned land, so it's not public parks and open space. It's privately owned land and developed.
There is a covenant on the land that says that it will remain open space.
Okay. Well, if that is the case, sorry. If that is the case, the reason behind that, and I will take responsibility for this, is recognizing that as we're seeing in other parts of the Coachella Valley, that golf courses are being converted to other uses such as residential uses, and to provide that future opportunity. I was not aware of a covenant on this property. That did not come to my attention, so I apologize to the council that I was not aware of that. But if the council believes that it's appropriate to keep it in parks and open space based on Councilmember Ramos-Smith's information, we can certainly, you can propose an amendment as part of this consideration of this resolution. However, I would point out that that covenants can be undone, and that at some point in the future, if a party wanted to pursue residential development of this property, then they would go through a general plan amendment process if it was to be retained as parks and open space, to allow that other use, whatever that other use may be, whether it's residential, whether it's some sort of commercial component such as a hotel, whatever that might be.
So just because they already have land swapped or their density bonus were swapped with the adjacent property owner, they can now change their mind and we have no control over that?
No, I apologize, Councilmember. That's not what I was trying to say. If the council believes that this property should be retained as parks and open space, certainly you can propose an amendment to the resolutions before you and keep that in the parks and open space designation. If at some point there is consideration for other uses of that property, and assuming that there is an opportunity to that, and I apologize, I don't know much about the covenant that Councilmember is referring to, but if there is opportunity, that I was just explaining that they would have to go through a public process that would ultimately be in front of the city council. But if the covenant is restrictive and doesn't allow for that, then it may not happen.
Okay, so you've kind of included lots that don't belong to the Plantation Golf Course. On the southerly portion, the Plantation Golf Course ends at the boot, and everything around that is neighborhood, whatever you want to call it, residential. And then that little, on the northwest corner, that little square is not part of the plantation. And on the east, those two squares are not part of the plantation. So those can remain that brown color, but the green should be the upper and lower of Avenue 51 section, if Avenue 51 continued.
So again, if it's the direction of the council to make the amendment to incorporate the changes the Councilmember Amos-Smith is suggesting, we will do that, and there would just need to be an amendment made to the resolution to address the change.
Well, the thing is, I'm not sure any of my colleagues even understand what I'm talking about.
We're trying to look at it, but
what happened when this men's plantation golf course came forward is that in order for remaining development to happen around that area, because originally it was all supposed to be 1 acre parcel residential lots. In order for the projects around there to move forward, the plantation golf course allowed for a density bonus transfer to the other parcels so that they can have the increased density for the residential housing versus building houses on 1 acre parcels. So we made it part of the density bonus transfer that this land remain open space for perpetuity. And that's what you guys don't have the history on, but I'm not even sure you understand what a density bonus transfer is, because you guys haven't done one, and we haven't done one since this project.
If I can jump in, there was and this was before my time, but I understand, and I'm trying to bring it up, was that there was a development agreement for the plantation estates, which outlined the terms of transferring the density to allow for more units if certain open space was maintained as open space.
Right.
I'm not aware of the covenant, but there's certainly history and documents with respect to the plantation's estates development agreement that outlined all of this. I'm not sure if I'd be able to go through it, but I think while we're here at right now, but I think Councilmember Ramos-Hamid is saying that it probably should revert back to what it originally was in the current general plan, which I just took a look at the staff report, which was parks and open space, but not that entirety of that area as park and open space.
And even the original map is incorrect, because the purple area should only include the 5 acre parcel, not the corner of Monroe and 50, and not that little corner of this brown section. Those are not part of the festival overlay. So there's some issues here.
Would it be suitable to leave it as open green space, and if in the future, if they like the development, come back and amend the general plan, correct?
Well, they can't.
Well, yeah, basically, I think what both the city attorney and the council member are saying is that there was a development agreement put in place that I apologize, I was not aware of. But I think the recommendation is generally, and please help city attorney if I don't say this fully, but the recommendation or a potential recommendation to amend the resolution would be to retain the parks and open space land use designation for those properties generally referred to as the properties generally referred to as the plantation estates, without getting to specific.
The plantation golf course is the open space.
Apologies.
The men's private plantation golf course. I will always say that because I will always not like it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Might
so
be-
that needs to remain green, but that still, the original map was incorrect because it has in purple additional parcels that are not part of the festival zone, and they should be that brown color that you want it to be.
So, Mr. Snyder, I just texted you just a bad shot of what the original map said, if that helps. But yes, you're correct. It could, if the council desires right now, it could go revert that area back to its original park and open space, or it can continue this item, which I don't think anybody wants to do.
No, we don't want to do that.
Okay.
So I think we can, if the council will adopt the resolution with a mandatory language directing staff to retain the parks and open space land use designation for the plantation golf course. And then the councilman was also talking about properties that have been designated the festival land use designation. That has not changed from the original 2019. If there were errors, what I would recommend is that you give staff the opportunity to go back and review that. And if we do need to correct, we will come back as a separate item.
Yeah, you need to look at the festival overlay because there's only one 5-acre parcel that is part of the purple on the east side of Monroe. All the others can be your brown color. And then the other question I have is, why did we change on the north side of Avenue 50 those few parcels to red instead of continuing all the way as far west as we could to the school grounds? Are we going to let them be, what is green? What is that color? Green?
The green is the green color designates park and open space.
No, the other green, the olive green, Desert Estates neighborhood. Oh,
yes.
Okay, that's fine. So we just extended to the 4 parcels. That's fine. Okay, so we just need to clean up the plantation men's golf course, private, which my engineering company designed, which I didn't like either.
We can pass this with making the change in that verbiage, correct?
Right. Again, I would recommend that the city council adopt resolution 10322, approving a general plan amendment, amending chapter 3, land use and urban design of the general plan 2040, and amending the general plan land use designation map, except that the parks and open space land use designation for the properties generally referred to as the plantation golf course be retained as parks and open space.
And I would just add as originally designated in general plan 2040.
Thank you, City Attorney. I'll still make that motion.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Miller, a second by Councilmember Holmes. Can I have a vote, please?
Councilmember Holmes.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramos Amit.
Aye, and we're going to title this amendment number 1.
You can.
Well, it's 22. I think we still have to verify that we have no other. So it'd be number
We
1.
haven't done any others. This is number 1.
2022.
Yeah, so it'd be number 1. Yes.
Okay.
It would be yes, it can be number 1, but just know that in 2023, it would have to change. We would start the numbering all again if that's a desire of the council.
Okay.
So
Mayor
we'll
Pro
make
Tem
that change.
Mayor Pro Tem Ortiz, thank you. And Mayor Furman.
All right, motion passes. So moving on to item 10.6, ordinance 1782, repealing chapter 150, billboards and signs, and chapter 159, zoning regulation of title 15, land usage of the Indio Municipal Code, and adopt the City of Indio Unified Development Code as a signage and zoning regulations for the City of Indio, and repealing the current citywide zoning map and adopting a new citywide zoning map. Mr. Kevin Snyder, be handling this.
Thank you, Mayor and members of City Council. So we're at the end, and I appreciate your patience. Ordinance 1782 is the new zoning regulations for the City of Indio. We've gone through it in full, so I won't say anything else other than just to remind you that this will come back to you for second reading in September. So the effectiveness will take place after that action, assuming that you take that action. But again, I really want to emphasize that this is a comprehensive rewrite of your zoning regulations that will implement the general plan that the city council adopted over 3 years ago. And we're happy to answer any questions. I know there's some public comment on that. And again, I think Mr. Doria, we've talked to him. We're prepared to answer any questions that you might have regarding his comments. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a public hearing item, so I will open up the public hearing. And I do have one request to speak, Mr. Polo Doria.
Mr. Mayor, council people, it's good to be here tonight. And congratulations with this process of this general plan update. It's a big thing. I have been honored and privileged to work in the city of Indio and bringing business, commerce, and industry to the city for years. And I truly love that work. And in that process, I've been involved in three general plan updates. In past experience, what happens with such wholesale change, and by experience, you're going to come up with several dozens of times where the policy, the intent does not connect with practical application in the city. It's hard to identify it early, but later down the road, this pulpit will be full of those cases where, why did we do this? This doesn't work, and we need to change this. So I'm late in the game, but there's two things I hope that you would consider regarding the recent zoning text. One of them came late to my attention, and that is there is a zoning text change that says basically that any mini storage and outdoor storage project is to have a component, an additional component of retail and office added to it. The intent, I think, having talked to Kevin and the city manager, the intent is that mini storage and outdoor storage doesn't bring a lot of impact to the city economically, but yet it's a needed use. So the intent was, well, let's change it. Let's require it to have another element in this way, in a wholesale change here. What's going to happen is it doesn't practically adapt to all parcels or all projects. So you're going to have cases where it simply doesn't make sense. I'm involved in a project right now, mini storage and outdoor storage, over there on Van Buren Street, right across from the sanitary district. And this zoning text is going to apply. And basically the developer looked at this and says, wait a minute, nobody, no retail, no office is going to be across the street from the sanitary district. It just doesn't make practical locational sense. But yet this ordinance in a wholesale way says you got to do it. So this is one of those cases where, again, policy and intent is not going to meet practical reality. So I asked, there's a very easy fix to this. And that is that the planning manager, Kevin, and his successors will have an eye for these cases where policy doesn't make sense and it may prohibit development in that project. And they can gauge. So I'd rather that you add verbiage simply saying, in cases where it doesn't make sense, that the planning manager would have the discretion to both analyze that, come up with conclusions, and simply say, you know what, this doesn't apply in your case. That's going to save you literally dozens and dozens. Now, mind you, that doesn't mean that it's not going to happen in other cases. I can think of several areas in the city where industrial meets residential, and it would be ideal. But in many other cases, in the darkest, deepest industrial areas, it doesn't make sense. So I ask that you consider that change. One sentence at the discretion of the planning manager that this may or may not apply, giving him the latitude to avoid a lot of potentially future discontentful developers, and it may actually kill some projects.
Right. Your time's up, Mr. Doria.
Can I reset for another 3?
Well,
I think I put several things on my notice.
yeah, but this was for this one item.
Got it.
So yeah.
Okay. I do have another, but
So if you could conclude, yeah.
any questions?
No. Righty. Do we have any further?
No other comments, Mayor.
Okay, no further comments. So I will close the public hearing and open up for council for any questions, comments, discussion.
If I could, Kevin, can you, obviously you've heard Mr. Dorio's other issues. Could you at least bring that to us to let us know what he would have brought towards us and your explanation?
So let's speak specifically on the mini storage consideration that he brought up. And that is the only discussion Mr. Doria and I have had. So if he has any other items, I did not have that discussion with him. Okay. But as he noted, he spoke with both the city manager and myself. And generally, we agree. There are instances where having that retail or office fronting the mini storage facility may not work. And why we put that language in there is for a couple of reasons. One, we have a lot of mini storage applications coming into our city. And will they provide a qualitative value for our citizens in terms of storage opportunities? They do not necessarily provide a quantitative value in terms of property tax, sales tax, and/or employment. So in order to balance those needs, we came up with this language that did require that 50% of the frontage. So if you have 100 feet, then it's 50 feet as an example, be occupied by a building or buildings with retail or office uses and the mini storage being behind it. But certainly, as Mr. Doria pointed out, that doesn't work in all instances. And I can fully agree that probably a retail business or an office business may not want to locate across from Valley Sanitary District for obvious reasons. So we're in agreement. So I actually have a proposed amendment, if the council wants to hear it, that I think reflects what Mr. Doria is asking. And I can just read it now. So he's talking about 4.19.02C of the proposed Unified Development Code. And as I said, that's that minimum 50% requirement. So I would recommend the city council consider adoption of 4.1902H, which states the Director of Community Development is authorized to exercise discretion in the application of 4.1902C, where it is determined through the provision of a market analysis letter by a qualified real estate professional that the location does not offer the market conditions to support the implementation of this standard. What that basically is saying is, yes, there are those instances, but in order for me to make findings, I need some justification, or a future me needs some justification. And really what that is a letter by a qualified professional who has the background to say, here is why, from a market perspective, application of the standard would not work in this particular location. And that is the proposed amendment.
Well, it sounds okay to me. City Attorney, is that lawful?
Yeah, yes, that is appropriate. There is a standard that the discretion needs to be, needs to be addressed. And so we have a standard that's qualified, and that would be appropriate. And just for the council's information, that language is on page 266 of your staff report for this item.
And I might recall a second item that Mr. Doria would have brought up, and Mr. Snyder can guide us to it. But apparently in these new regulations, there's a requirement for a public meeting to be held pursuant to every development, certain types of development. And Mr. Doria had indicated that that might be burdensome. We do request or suggest that large developments have a community meeting, but it's not a requirement per code. Is that it? So I believe that was the second item that you would have discussed if time hadn't lost.
Yes, so there is proposed in so Article 6, which is the application and procedures element of the Unified Development Code, specifically 6.03.05 neighborhood review meetings. The purpose of this standard, if the council agrees, is to provide early daylighting of certain types of projects to members of the community. Oftentimes, we have folks that come to planning commission meetings, sometimes city council meetings, that say, I've never heard about this project. I was never noticed. I'm outside the notice area. So the idea here is to provide an opportunity for the folks to have, for citizens property owners, businesses to have early notice about it. So what this would do, and as an example, conditional use permit, or we call it design review today, we're calling it planning review in the future, specific plans. So we have a list of application types, and it would require the developer before they formally submit to hold a neighborhood meeting, ideally in the area where the project's going to happen, to notice the folks in the area, to have them come to the meeting, to present the project to them, get their feedback, make notes, and submit that as part of their application package. And I understand this might be burdensome, but as staff, I'm also sensitive to the fact that in the city of Indio, there is a desire for awareness. There is a desire for transparency. So we were trying to balance the interest here. Now, this is a staff recommendation. Certainly the council does not have to support this idea, but it is intended to increase the public awareness of projects early on, to allow the public to give feedback as the developer or the project developer is preparing their plans that could incorporate some of that community feedback to address concerns that they may hear at that early stage.
And that's on page 296 of your agenda report.
Thank you, City Attorney.
And not to advocate either side, but the fact that at that early stage, there are times when the project isn't fully fleshed out. And so some of the elements that may have been discussed in that neighborhood meeting may or may not be part of the final application or anything that you would approve. So it's just, this would be beyond what's required by state law.
Yes.
As Mr. Snyder indicates, it's an ad, but could be a good ad, but it could be a burden as well to some developments, and something that could be presented early on that isn't even going to happen. Because as things are submitted to the staff and it gets to the planning commission, there are adjustments that are made along the way. Something doesn't conform. So it can be very different from what the neighborhood saw 3 months prior to the final application.
And what size projects are you proposing this on?
So Councilmember, examples in that code section at page 296 of 390, conditional use permits, general plan or text amendments, specific plans, tentative maps, development code or zoning map amendments. So we have a list of
Development
items.
agreements as well.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
And so again, as the city manager pointed out, things can change. This is an early presentation. It is not binding on the developer to bring that same project forward. They may make changes. They may want to modify, but it is an opportunity for citizens to have awareness and to give feedback, but it's not binding. It's not a factor in the decision-making. It's simply an opportunity to provide early sharing of information.
So the developer will be independently doing this outreach with the community?
Correct. And city staff can attend as a resource. We've done that in the past when developers have voluntary neighborhood meetings. We're a resource to the meeting attendees, but it is not a city-sponsored meeting. It is a developer-sponsored meeting that they are responsible for the logistics of.
Essentially, it applies to every discretionary land use action and every legislative land use action.
Yeah, Mayor.
Councilman Ramirez, you have your hand up.
I can kind of see some challenges with this, especially when some of these decisions or considerations are solely the responsibility of the council. And some of these items we don't want going to the public before they're fleshed out. Specifically development agreements. I mean, why would I want the public to chime in on a development agreement? That's something that is there's a lot of things that are at council discretion. And I don't have a problem with suggesting it as staff has done in the past with large projects, but I wouldn't want to make it a requirement on every single thing, because at the end of the day, we are the legislative body. We're the quasi-judicial body that has the authority. And yeah, we take public input. That's what the public comment period is for, and for public hearings. I would just leave it the way it was, that we suggest to the large projects, specific plans, 2,000 home projects or large commercial projects that are going to take up, half a section of land, I would ask staff to suggest to them to go out for community input, but I wouldn't want to make it a condition, especially not on the items that we are the only say so. We'll take public input, but we are the final decision makers and we are the ones that have to accept the input from the public, not the developer.
Thank you, council members. So moving forward, the first is the amendment to add that verbiage, correct?
So if you're speaking to the previous conversation regarding the requirement for retail or office for mini storage facilities, there is that. You could also, if the council wanted to, you could strike as an amendment, section 6.03.05 neighborhood review meetings from the Unified Development Code.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with changing that, but the
I don't have a
neighborhood,
problem with that
meetings,
either.
I mean, we welcome all engagement with our community, but to me, it seems like it's adding another layer for the developer, and I wouldn't.
Until it's approved and moved on.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
Where they
Conditions,
actually
I mean,
have it
It's
then.
excessive.
So
Yeah.
I agree.
Right.
And then
And
one
Mayor, I still have a lot more questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My apologies. You can continue. Go ahead.
Okay, I just didn't want you to start closing it up, but.
Oh, yeah.
I got one.
Yeah, Mr. Snyder, thank you for bringing us to the final mile. We truly do appreciate it. You kept telling me 2 years ago, I had to wait for the zoning amendments, and here we are. So I'm not going to hold you up too much, but I do have some issues because this is the first time that we've seen this document in its entirety, and it is a beautiful document. It is beautiful. Congratulations to everyone who worked on this. But the first section I kind of want to bring up because I have a little bit of an issue with is 4.04 animals. You're capping the maximum amount of domestic animals in any household to 4, combination of cats or dogs. And speaking for my Hispanic community, that might be an issue. I don't feel fair that we put a cap on domestic pets. Maybe 20 is excessive, but I don't think that 4 is a fair number, and I don't know how we come to a fair number. So I'd rather just leave it silent like it was before, and that's just my comment. Council can decide whatever they want. Section 4.10, convenience markets, is left totally blank, and then that kind of leaves me wondering why, because we will have convenience markets coming forward. 4.18, we have never allowed massage industry in the city of Indio unless it was in the office of a doctor under a physician or a chiropractor. And now it seems that we're going to allow massage. And history in the city of Indio is that massage business gets out of control if it's not under a regulated professional. So I'd like to keep that the way it was. 4.23, thrift shops. I'm not sure if the downtown specific plan still has a moratorium on thrift shops, but I'm concerned that we are allowing thrift shops to still pop up throughout the community as long as they're not 1,000 feet within one another. And finally, the out of compliance properties is something that I've been talking about for 20 years. When the city of La Quinta incorporated 35, 40 years ago, they adopted their first general plan. They made it mandatory that all properties would come into compliance within, I think it was 25 years or by the next general plan. And I would like us to consider the same because we have some properties that were built in the 1900s that are substandard, and should they fall down, I really do not want to allow them to rebuild. And I actually want to add an additional condition that they will come into compliance with the general plan within 25 years. And I'm talking about like the dilapidated RV parks that are being taken. They are overused, overpopulated, overdensified, and unsafe conditions. We have 4 or 5 of them remaining in the city. Those types of properties, if we allow them to rebuild, I'm not sure it's in the right interest of our community and the direction that we're going in beautifying our city. So those are the main points that I take issue with in this new updated handy dandy zoning ordinance book that I'd like to have some conversation on.
So we started on the animals.
Okay.
Define.
For animals, for animals.
Or
But
domestic
that's been
animals.
hasn't it been that way for?
No. Goats, you can't have more than 4 goats. I'll tell you that. Or roosters.
That case in point, there's a house across the street
I
on
know.
Jefferson, not in Indio. It's got goats, chickens, a rooster, and multiple dogs. And I would not want that to be my neighbor.
No, but as far as domestic animals, we've never had a cat.
So Alessandra or Simran can correct me, but I believe we brought this straight over. We did not make any changes. So that standard now, whether or not the council agrees with that reference to 4, and it says up to 4 dogs or cats or a combination over 4 months of age. And it's it's on page 242 of 390. I'm learning city attorney. And it's 4.04.2B. And it speaks, there's subsections 1, 2, and 3. Again, this is page 242 of 390, and I believe that's where the council member was referring to. So if the city council as a whole does not agree with those standards, but we did not make any substantive changes to this area. We took it from the existing zoning code and did not make any changes. So
council member, if I may, work with me because we're both animal lovers. But
so is Glenn. He has 4 chihuahuas.
Okay, so he's maxed out.
Can't have any more.
He is.
Maybe we could do this by the pound, right? So, getting back to, so my caution or my question for conversation here is from an animal protection. People like yourself, myself, Glenn, and the people in this room, likely and most, will have 4 or 5 or have 2 or 3 cats and so on and so forth. I actually thought it was 5, not 4, but that's whatever. But there's so many issues where people continue to adopt and they've got 10 cats and 12 dogs and whatnot, and it becomes unsafe. If we don't set some parameters, my concern is that will create an unhealthy environment for neighbors, but even more importantly, an unhealthy and unsafe environment for animals, and we won't have any ability to manage that.
Well, can we change it from 4 to 6? 6 would be excessive for one household.
6 is fine with me.
I'm okay with 4. I mean, I think it just gives us some.
City attorney wants to speak.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like our sound ordinance. If you're not bothering anybody and nobody's complaining, we're not going to go hunt you down. But I do have a couple of houses that have 20 cats, and we're dealing with code on that, and it's becoming an issue. So if our council member has 4 chihuahuas and he wants 1 more, I'm okay with it. But at least gives us something that we could fall back on if we need to enforce something.
And I agree. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Under our licensing provisions for the animal control ordinance that we've adopted through the county, if you have more than 4 dogs, you're determined you have to get a kennel license. And so it may be, and I don't know if that number came because of the kennel license requirements with animal regulations.
But that doesn't include cats. That's what throws me off. You included cats.
Domesticated?
They're not considered fully domesticated.
So what do we do? But like I said, what do we do about horses? Are they exempt from this? Like a lot of these, we have some of the ranch properties that have multiple dogs and multiple stuff. I mean, I thought we did it by size of the property that they have.
Yeah, that's what's on that page.
Make sure it's safe. I also want to make sure it's not out of control too.
So Councilmember, on page 242 of 390, there is actually a table, and you are correct. There is a provision based on property size. So it breaks it down by, as the larger the property,
the more they can have,
the more you can have.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
Yeah.
But that is, I just want to point out that what we're talking about, or what the conversation has been, is around domestic animals. And we do, at least in this code language, currently specify 4 dogs or cats. Obviously, the council can remove the reference to cats if you so want. But we're seeking your direction.
Well, I think we still need to limit cats.
And if I may just confirm that it is a carryover from your current code.
Right.
I'm good with just leaving. I don't think
we're just rolling
hunt
it over.
somebody down that's got 4 cats outside somewhere.
Nobody's going to come count the cats in your house.
I don't know. They came door to door a couple years ago.
We don't do that.
Yeah, but not in the gated community.
Control.
Okay.
Yeah. So what our next Yeah.
Oh, actually, right before that, convenience markets. That section. This is on page 252 of 390, and it's 4.110, and it shows reserved. So in the past, there have been discussions both at the city council and planning commission level about convenience markets and the proliferation. It's getting late. Thank you. Of them in the city. And at the staff level, in consultation with the city manager, we thought it best that this be a topic that have its own dialogue. And that it would be a substantive dialogue that we will come back at a later date to see first, does the city council want to have a substantive dialogue on that? And what is your direction to your planning commission and staff?
And I know when we did that, we did it on drugstores because we started to get a drugstore wars on every corner. We have Rite Aid, Walgreens, and back then I think it was Thrifty and that. Right. And every time one put up another one. And the first one that tumbled was where the Kaiser Permanente is now across from JFK. Mm-hmm. And we have the Rite Aid that's closed now. There's not a lot of uses for those things after we did. So we put a moratorium on there. Convenience stores, I don't have a problem with them if they're in locations that if they provide quality products. But another liquor store or something to have, I think that's a discussion we need to have. I'm not against businesses. I'm pro for that. But once you have, like if you go down Jackson Street, there's 5, 6, 7 of them within a very small area. And if they have had quality food, quality products, produce or other stuff where it makes a difference, or carniceria or something like that, that has some kind of more value than just raffle tickets, beer and pretzels. It'd be a different story. I don't want to stop business, but at the same time, eventually they eat their own, kind of like the drugstores did. And then we have empty buildings that people have invested in that got there. So
how do we manage oversaturation, I guess would be my question. Because
the liquor license is our tool.
Liquor license is we're the only ones that can allow that with the saturation. Is we can deny the liquor license, and then most places won't go in because of that.
Okay.
And honestly, this conversation highlights why we thought it'd be good to bring it back at a later date, because there are a lot of variables to this conversation. I think that the council needs to provide your direction to staff for what you want the planning commission and staff to review and bring back to you. So that is the reason why it's reserved at the moment, because of the fact that there's multiple variables. It's an involved conversation, and we believe that it would be appropriate to have a separate dialogue and potentially amend the zoning regulations based on the ultimate city council direction.
I'm good with that. Yeah.
Terrific.
Okay. And then I think that the next concern was page 265 to 390. This is 4.18, massage establishment standalone. And as the council member pointed out, this is language that is more permissive. This is something that we do see in many other cities. It's certainly not something that the city council has to adopt in its zoning regulations, but it is presented in this form. There is, as Councilmember Ramos-Amith pointed out, a distance separation of 1,000 feet from another standalone massage establishment and 400 feet, a minimum of 400 feet from schools, parks and recreation facilities, community centers, libraries, youth organizations, and child daycare centers in home daycare centers or any parcel zoned for residential use.
You're talking about thrift shops or massage?
Massage.
I'm still on massage. Sorry, Councilwoman.
I think we prohibit them unless they're in a doctor or chiropractor. I think we continue with that practice because.
Yeah, me too. I mean, there's still a problem in other cities that allow standalone.
Yeah, I won't name any other cities, but there are problems.
So we'll keep it as.
So just to be clear, the council's direction is to, for 4.18, to remove the current language and replace with only to be allowed in association with doctors' offices or chiropractors
or state board licensed offices of medical professionals.
Your license, but it would be under some sort of medical professional or physical therapist.
Right.
Something like that.
Right.
Massage therapist.
But I mean.
We were also told that massage establishment is allowed as an accessory use currently, I believe.
Right, in a doctor's office.
I think we were also told, a spa as part of like a hotel would be allowed. No?
Ooh. In a hotel?
Well, what about hotel?
That would be separate.
Right. So I think what we can do I think we've heard your direction. We'll limit it. We'll revise the language. And if as we go through, when you look to adopt the ordinance, if you do, we can help with the amendatory language. But I think we've gotten the council's direction that you want to restrict this to an association with a licensed medical professional office or physical therapist office. And that's what I heard.
And if a big 4-star hotel comes in, then is that a conditional use permit or is that, spa,
You would need to amend your zoning code, I think, at that point.
What's that? The city?
I said, I think you would need to amend your zoning code at that point. Is that right, Kevin?
Well, so we would consider a spa use different than a standalone massage establishment because a spa use typically has other services offered. So massage would be one of them. So from a zoning perspective, we wouldn't classify it as a standalone massage establishment.
Okay, that's good. We don't need them. Sorry.
And then finally, I think the council member's concern was page 270 of 390, 4.23, titled Resale, Consignment, and Thrift Shops. In reference to the question the council member asked, the downtown specific plan as adopted by council does limit these type of operations. We historically have allowed them in other parts of the city, primarily in our more regional commercial areas or community commercial areas through a conditional use permit. These standards are, for all intents and purposes, not inconsistent with the practices to date. We've developed more standards because we had a limited number of standards when we were reviewing them. Certainly, if the council feels that this kind of land use is not appropriate, it would not only affect 4.23, but we would also have to revise Article 2 for land uses. So looking for your direction.
We've had an history. I've only been here 20 years and let me tell you, there were more thrift shops in this city than there were anything else, including drugstores. And the biggest challenge with thrift shops, because I think they present a value, and then you get into the conversation about antique shops. And hey, as people will tell you, I will shop just about anywhere. But the challenge is the ability to control them. Case in point, we had issues with Martha's Village there on Requa. We've had issues with it's not Angel Light, Angel View, because people bring stuff. You can put signs all over the place, and they are going to bring couches and chairs and dump them, and that brings a whole lot of homeless and a whole lot of drugs. Because hey, why not sleep on the couch overnight? And clothes get dumped. And then these establishments aren't able, and if they're closed for the weekend, to pick things up, the clothes, the cushions, the couch, and it creates a huge problem. I would love to have a thrift store where that didn't happen. I'd be delighted. I don't know how to avoid those issues.
I
like, and they keep a great neat, very neat.
Set regulations. That set regulations allowing them to be there. The downtowns we're really trying to protect right now because of the, what we've got working there. We have plenty of them there, but I think to allow them in other places, I think we just need to tighten up the regulations on what they do for code enforcement and other stuff to force them into certain ways to make sure that it's not only a profitable business, but not a burden on the other businesses or on the city.
And you can put signs up all over the place to say, don't dump. But the reality is people are going to do that, and they're going to do that at 11 o'clock. So how quickly must that be removed before we cite? Because it can be very problematic. And that's the reason for my concern.
I think it's a separate conversation on that one too.
So just if I could, a couple of responses. I would just want to make clear the downtown specific plan is its own regulatory document. So it is not covered by the Unified Development Code. In 4.23, to the points that the council members are making, we did develop standards. We had developed standards that says enclosed activities. All activities shall be completely enclosed within the building for the use. Collection and receiving areas. A dedicated collection area shall be established separate from the main patron entrance and may be located on the front, side, or rear. If the collection area is located in the front of the building, the bulk donation area shall be shielded from public view. The collection area shall be noticed to prohibit depositing goods when the store is closed. We established hours of operation, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. daily. And we also established standards for litter control. So to the council's points, we recognizing that these are consistent standards that we've experienced throughout the city. We did develop certain standards to provide a regulatory oversight, particularly through code enforcement activities, should the businesses be not acting according to the standards.
Problematic.
Correct. So, but again, it is the council's discretion. Well, there also is a standard similar to your earlier discussion on other uses where we have to establish that they have to be a minimum of 1,000 feet from each other. So you can't have these type of uses within 1,000 feet of each other. So that avoids the clustering that I think the council member was referring to, at least in the past.
Yep.
So we did try to put some boundaries around these type of uses and seek your direction.
If we can manage what we have or manage that, I mean, I'm totally fine with that, but I think that's just kind of one of the challenges I've experienced over.
And so if they bad actors, after a while, we just pull their permit.
Right. So
that's the way it rolls. So
a couple of things I'm getting reminded by my team. So thrift stores, we are proposing, and you can certainly modify this, that in our regional commercial areas, they be permitted uses. They still have to comply with the standards, and that would be applied at the time of review. And then thrift shop, so pawn shops, which we haven't talked about, but just as a highlight, those are still considered conditional use permits in those zones.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Is that the last one from Ms. Amit?
But not from Elaine.
No. I still have out of compliance.
And actually the council member on that one I was going to talk about. So really what the council member is referring to, and I think other cities, I think she referenced the city of La Quinta, is what's called an amortization schedule. Basically you give non-compliant either properties and or businesses a certain time to come into compliance. And the goal is that there's an understanding that for whatever reasons, these properties are not consistent and you want to bring them forward to be consistent. It is something that perhaps the city attorney wants to weigh in where there have been case law on this. And so we have to be careful.
Tread lightly.
But it is an opportunity if the city so desires to bring forward those properties that perhaps do not reflect the current vision and goals of the city. And we want to bring them forward so that in the future they will. Perhaps the city attorney might want to weigh in. I'm not sure.
Thank you. Yes, with amortization period, there's always, they always sound good in theory, but in practice, they're very difficult to enforce because it usually ends up in litigation. And even though you have a blanket 25 years, it doesn't necessarily mean that the economic use of that particular business has been expended to the point where you can amortize it out and require that they demolish it and all of that. Usually, depending on the business, will take legal action. And so, it's certainly something I think perhaps we can explore, but I'm just trying to find the language. I'm hesitant to do it on the fly without some further thought. And it sounds like there may be an opportunity where more zoning code amendments will come before the council. And perhaps that's something that you can, that Kevin and his staff can further flesh out.
That was going to be my suggestion as well. I understand that this may be of interest to the city council. We were obviously not prepared tonight to offer you a substantive recommendation, but if this is a topic the council would like to discuss and bring back for potential amendments to city code, we're happy to take the council's direction and do that work and bring it back at a later date. Because as the city attorney pointed out, it's a complicated topic. I think we owe you, and if it's going to be a zoning code amendment, the planning commission, the opportunity to really delve into this, to understand the opportunities and constraints around these type of regulatory controls. But as Councilmember Ramos-Amith has pointed out, other cities have done it. And so we can look to them for guidance as well.
Okay, I'm good with that.
I'm good with that too. And I have a question. I don't know, I think this might apply, every now and then in our city over the years, homes catch on fire and they're never fixed and they're never torn down. And they just sit there in a state of blight. Where does that fall under?
Correct. So we actually have a provision of we have it in our current code, and we have it in the new code as well, that deals with those kind of situations where a property has been damaged beyond a certain amount. It may or may not be able to be reconstructed, and it's tied back to the value of the property. It's also tied back to code enforcement action, and we have some examples in our city currently where we are working. My department is working with code enforcement to address those, and we are working with the property owners to either make a determination of whether those buildings will stay or they're going to come down. And this is something that our city manager previously asked code enforcement and community development to work on together in recognition that we have had some longstanding buildings that have not progressed. So we do have provisions that allow us to address that, both in our zoning regulations as well as our building codes that you have adopted, and then alongside with the code enforcement regulations that you've adopted.
Kevin, will that allow us to take those properties as time goes on, or first hand of refusal to buy them so we can turn them into either affordable housing or something else? Because usually if we knock it down, it just sits there and it's a blight to that community. Is there any opportunity for us to be able to do that and then put it into our housing stock as part of something, or with one of our partners like Habitat for Humanity to build a home for veterans or those?
It's a wonderful question that I perhaps will defer to the city attorney.
Yeah, I think that's inverse condemnation.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, certainly, I think Councilmember Holmes' question, which I believe Kevin answered, but it might have to do also with what happens when there's something vacant or something burnt down. Is there a requirement in the code to like put fencing or to do something like that? And that I don't know. But with respect to Councilmember Miller's question, to go into a property after it's blighted requires, a warrant and requires a nuisance abatement action. So we wouldn't be able to codify what you're exactly looking at, which is, buy that property, condemn it out, et cetera, for other purposes. That would have to be done on an ad hoc basis in compliant with all the provisions of law.
I tried.
I know. Good one, but no.
Oh, okay. And I got one question too, Kevin. I didn't get a chance. How does this affect our sign? I see the sign ordinance being repealed in that real quickly. Will it affect? I'm more worried about billboards and monument signs along I-10 and other stuff. We're still in the dark ages on some of our signs. I know people say it distracts people from seeing digital signs, but it gives people a multitude of opportunities. I didn't see a lot of that in here. And I know we have some big properties coming in over by, I see the sign up by Golf Center Parkway. There's another gentleman that wants to build one on the other side. Where does that kind of sit in here for people that have properties that are trying to expand their properties, but have not got into that mode of being able to put something up?
It's a great question. So first and foremost, your sign code is not compliant with federal law.
Okay.
So
wonderful.
We have to get this sign code in compliance, and that's based on Supreme Court cases. So the sign code has been revised to reflect both compliance with the laws I just referenced, balancing of the interests of private property owners with the public interest and aesthetic value. So the examples you just gave, there will still be opportunities to put those pylon signs in.
Okay.
We still have standards. Now, under the old code, if you had 1,500 feet of lineal frontage, you could put in a lot of pylon signs. We are reducing that. You can still put in a pylon sign, but instead of 3, maybe it's only 1. And that's the recommendation from staff. So we're balancing the interest here, but signage control is as much a aesthetic issue as anything else. And so we're balancing that. We also did work with the city attorney's office, and in the sign code, we do have an amortization schedule for non-compliant signage. Okay. We know that is an issue in the city. So with the assistance of the city attorney's office, we did develop the language there. So I think in full, the sign code is economic development supportive, balances the city's interest in aesthetic value and overall beautification of the city. And it still allows private property owners to advertise and conduct their businesses in a meaningful way.
Good enough.
And so I'm going to, proceed with that, because signs have been an issue for me for a long time, because they really present themselves with a lot of bright light in our city. There's signs, there's banners everywhere that have been up at least 4 or 5 years, and they're tattered and faded. And there's signs, there's 3 businesses that have moved in under the original sign, or facades aren't painted, et cetera. And so you just, provided some clarification, but my question now is, great, there may be some modifications, but this information is terrific. But does code enforcement now have the tools to be able to go out and cite when there's a banner that's been up there for 3 years, or when there's windows that have been broken and there's plywood on them and for years at a time, or I mean, I can go on and on and on about all the sign issues in every component of the city that just makes for a lot of ugliness.
The short answer, Councilmember, is yes.
Yes.
We have strengthened code enforcement's hand, so to speak, to be better able to enforce regulations. Our previous sign code didn't give them as much foundation as this proposed sign code does. And so working, and it is a shared exercise because we assist community development assists code enforcement in those enforcement actions. But I believe the regulations here give support to the concern you have in terms of making noticeable changes. Again, we also have this opportunity to amortize non-conforming signs. And assuming this is passed, then we will go through a process working with code enforcement to begin the notification of those property owners who have non-conforming signs, presenting the amortization schedule and what they need to do to be compliant at the end of that period.
Certainly, it's a process. And I appreciate that this gives us the ability then to move forward. A little bit of teeth. Thank you.
All right. So moving forward, I don't know if we're going to just.
Well,
if I can jump in, maybe Kevin, we can do a summary.
Yes.
I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the only substantive amendment that we heard was around the mini storage facilities, which I previously read into the record.
Yes.
And can do that again. The other topics that were raised were discussed. However, I just corrected myself because we're also going to address the massage parlors, the standalone massage parlors, and we will limit those to offices occupied by medical professionals and or physical therapists. So we will amend that section. And
then I think it's also the removal of section 6.03.5 on the neighborhood meetings. At least I heard consensus on that.
Thank you. Yeah. And I was just going to go to that one there. I'm flipping my pages. So yes, the city attorney is correct. So in summary, we would modify language around mini storage facilities, and I will read this into the record in a minute, but in summary, we will modify the current text around massage establishments, standalone massage establishments, and we will terminate the language that was proposed for neighborhood review meetings. So as the council gets ready to consider an adoption, I think between the city attorney and myself, we can provide the actual guidance for that when you are ready.
Okay, well, I don't see any hands raised or any further questions, so I'll entertain a motion.
I'll be happy to try to deal with the motion here. I'll begin by reading, introduce and waive full reading of ordinance 1782, repealing chapter 150 billboards and signs and chapter 159 zoning regulations of title 15 land usage of the Indio Municipal Code and adopting the City of Indio Unified Development Code as the signage and zoning regulations for the City of Indio and repealing the current citywide zoning map and adopting a new citywide zoning map. Waive full reading of the ordinance number 1782 and request the city clerk to read the ordinance by title only.
And we would add with the following revisions, and that would be, and feel free to jump in, Director Snyder, that would be to add language to the mini warehouse facilities as stated into the record by Mr. Snyder. And that would be to add a new paragraph H. I forget to what section.
It would be 4.19.02.
And then second would be to remove section 6.03.05 from the code. And third would be to amend section 4.18 with respect to massages, to limit it to revise the language so that it's only permitted as an accessory to a licensed chiropractor, physical therapist, and doctor's office. Is that correct, Mr. Snyder?
What I wrote was licensed medical professional office or physical therapist office.
Great.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So we get a second.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Holmes and a second by Miller. Have a vote, please.
Councilmember Holmes.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramos Amit.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ortiz.
Aye.
And Mayor Furman.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Snyder, for your work. Thank you to our consultants and our council, a lot of hard work for the last few years going into all this. And thank you for the hard work. And also thank you, Ms. Diaz, for helping us, guiding us through this. But that's why we have a council. So it's great. Thank you.
And Mayor, if you allow me to read the ordinance title into the record.
Absolutely.
Ordinance number 1782, an ordinance of the City of Indio repealing Chapter 150, billboards and signs, and Chapter 159, zoning regulations, and of Title 15, land usage of the Indio Municipal Code, and adopting the City of Indio Unified Development Code as the signage and zoning regulations for the City of Indio, and repealing the current citywide zoning map and adopting a new citywide zoning map. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So that completes our public hearing items. We'll move on to item 11, which is public comments for items not on the agenda. I do have 2 requests to speak. I'll start off with, is it Josie Mendoza? Yeah. Or Jose Mendoza? Okay. Mr. Mendoza, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I'm here on behalf of Project Viva. It's an organization that is ran by Melissa Curiel. I'll be speaking today on giving a comment. So my name is Josue Mendoza. I'm a resident of Indio and a Project Viva volunteer. Tobacco users are not the only ones who breathe the deadly smoke. All the people around them inhale it too. The U.S. Surgeon General's report concluded that there is no safe level of exposure to secondhand smoke. Breathing even a little indoor or outdoor secondhand smoke is not safe. Everyone deserves to breathe clean air, no matter where they live, work, or play. Project Viva survey also included questions on tobacco litter. Respondents answered questions related to tobacco litter and the extent to which they believe it was a problem in their community. 75% found that tobacco litter in outdoor areas was very much a problem. It's what the community members of Indio want and deserve: comprehensive smoke-free outdoor areas to cover dining, entryways, public events, ATM lines, ticket lines, bus stops, sidewalks, and outdoor work sites. Once again, I hope you consider adding smoke-free spaces to the agenda to protect the health and safety of our community. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, sir. We'll move on to our next public comment, which is Lizette Pacheco.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Lisa Pacheco, resident of Indio and Project Viva volunteer. Smoking remains the single largest cause of preventable disease and death in the United States. The American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, Project Viva, and partners surveyed the community of Indio on their thoughts about smoking and secondhand smoke in outdoor public areas. They found that 86% of the Indio residents said that they had a problem with breathing in another person's tobacco smoke outside, including e-cigarettes and vapes. There is no safe level of exposure to secondhand smoke. Expanding smoke-free areas to outdoor dining and service areas will improve the outdoor dining experience and protect residents. I want to encourage the council to look into discussing smoke-free spaces, smoke-free environments to create smoke-free areas and help adults model healthy behavior for children and encourage people to smoke less or even quit. Research shows that prohibiting smoking in public places decreases the chances that kids will use tobacco products. Creating smoke-free outdoor areas is a way for communities to make outdoor spaces even more conducive to healthy living. I ask the council to get smoke-free comprehensive outdoor spaces as an agenda item to improve the health and life expectancy of our residents. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. So that would be my last request to speak for folks who are present. Do we have anyone online?
No, Mayor.
Okay, that will conclude that item. And so now I just want to deviate from our agenda a little bit. If I may, I want to recognize someone that's here, and I want to recognize our city attorney, Ms. Roxanne Diaz. This will be our last meeting with her. And I just want to start off with some comments, and I will let my council address her. They certainly been with her a little longer than I have. However, the 3.5 years I've been with Ms. Diaz, you've been a great resource to me, I've certainly learned a lot from you. It was a pleasure working with you and sitting alongside of you and guiding me through these meetings as a council member, mayor pro tem, and as mayor, especially as we've seen tonight, how they could get so complex, and you've always kept your composure, guided us right through this. So I just want to appreciate you for being a resource to me, being the work that you've done for our community and getting us to this point. We made some strides over the last few years. We've all witnessed. So I just want to thank you and recognize you for your work. I do have a certificate here that we will get to you. I don't know, there's the camera here, and it says, in grateful acknowledgement of 11 years of service to the city of Indio for your experience, expertise, professionalism, we thank you. So I want to give this opportunity to the rest of my council to address you. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Roxanne, when I first came on council, having your guidance and direction, first as a council member and certainly then as mayor, was absolutely invaluable and something I'll never forget, because your direction and guidance was very important. The last 11 years, there have been a lot of changes and a lot of growth, and you've been a part of that. In fact, you've worn quite a few hats here at the city of Indio, and your service is so much appreciated. And I appreciate the relationship that we've built up over the years here on council as we've navigated, some of the things that have occurred. So really appreciate everything you've done for the city.
Thank you very much.
And I'll go next. You're an amazing lawyer. You're even more amazing person. I don't want you to go, that personally, but I'll call you and later in the week and we'll talk. But, we couldn't have been as good a city as we are and turned out to be an even better city without your support and your knowledge, dedication, and love for just not only the profession that you are so very good at, but also the city of Indio. So congratulations to you. Look forward to many more things for you, but gonna miss you. I love you. And thank you for the many years of support.
Thank you so much, Glenn.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go next. I just wanted to say thank you for all of your service to our community, Roxanne. We couldn't have gotten to this position without you. And I know when I came in, I had no political experience. So we had a lot of conversations on the phone, and you were very helpful in guiding me. I had all these crazy ideas, and you were like, no, this is what you can do, what you can't do. So thank you for guiding me through all that and for guiding all of us through these processes for so long. And yeah, we just really appreciate your service to our community, but also your friendship in every time we met. You were always very nice to us, very courteous with your time. So we just really appreciate everything you've done for us and for our community and for our city. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Councilman Remy.
Just want to say thank you, and most important, take care of you.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. And, for this brief moment to say thank you for all of those wonderful words and good wishes, something that I was not expecting. But I think most of all for allowing me the honor to serve this great city. I also want to thank all the employees that I've worked with. I mean, some of them, Rob knows, day in and day out or weekly conversations. And it's just, you have such a great staff and they're so devoted to making the city the best that it can be. And certainly on behalf of myself and my firm, we are so proud to have been part of, the leadership change that when I came in and for, those of you who know, really has helped the city set the stage for its current economic renaissance. And we're so proud to have been part of that. So thank you very much. I wish nothing but the best for the city. And certainly, as I've told some of you, feel free to call. And I look forward to seeing all the good things that are going to happen. And I'll probably see you at the concerts next year. So it'll be great. That was, one of my most favorite projects. So thank you so much for the well wishes. I really appreciate it. And you're in good hands with your next city attorney. And so I wish all of you well and him well on many successes, and thank the staff that I've worked with so many years. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Roxanne, for being you. Don't ever change, right? All right. So our next council meeting, joint meeting with IWA is September 21st, 2022. If no one has any. Oh, yeah, exactly. It's getting late for us. You know, we're not used to 8:30 meetings. However, I do want to recognize again one of our fellow community members and police officers who we lost this last week, Mr. Ron Houston. So we like to adjourn this meeting in his memory. So this meeting is adjourned.